Everyone has been reborn, who would still act like an honest person. A high school student who traveled through time. The cold and beautiful CEO mother wanted Fang Zhou to be a mama's boy. After traveling through time, who would still be an honest person. Chapter 1 Wrong script. There's 10 million in this card. It's my compensation for you over the years. Don't rush to refuse. This is what you deserve. I know you don't need money, but this is what we agreed on before. Just treat it as a good breakup. Nanwu City. Number 11 Shuanghu Courtyard Villa. The modern and simple decoration style with a touch of luxury makes the interior lines and colors look a bit bright. At the entrance, a huge black suitcase is placed there. 2 men and 2 women are sitting at the table in the living room. They look like a family of 4. The atmosphere in the living room is a bit solemn. Fang Yuru's face is calm. Although they are discussing the divorce agreement, there is not much emotional fluctuation on her face. She sits there calmly. The top is a slim fit. The song brocade with gold twined flower craftsmanship has a waist-tightening treatment. The exquisite tailoring highlights her elegant figure. The collar is slightly raised, with a kind of classical reserve. The cuffs are embroidered with exquisite patterns. The lower body is an ankle-length skirt. The skirt sways in the wind, the song brocade pattern is more complicated and exquisite, and the flowing lines outline the graceful curves. A pair of simple embroidered shoes on the feet. A simple hairpin is inserted in the bun, revealing a snow-white goose neck. As the president of Yunxi Group, such clothing can completely serve as the ambassador image of the company's brand, elegant and graceful. Although she is 37. But time has not left any traces on her face. She is born with high looks and a good family background, so there is no trace of labor on her face, making Fang Yuru look like she is just in her early 30s. Although she is a wife and a mother, she is still a beautiful boss who is talked about in the business community of Nanwu City. Fang Yuru stretched out her hand and pushed. A bank card was in front of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man opposite was called Wang Changfeng, and he was her nominal ex-husband. Nominal. Ex-husband. As we all know, anything with so many prefixes in front of it is definitely not a good thing. Old Wang frowned slightly, and a trace of embarrassment appeared on his always gentle face. It was not because he was given money. Or divorced. It's just. Although the 2 boys and girls next to him were not related to him by blood, they were brought up by him after all, and they always called him Dad. It was really embarrassing to play such a scene in front of the children. But it's not that I haven't thought about this scene before. Taking a deep breath, Wang Changfeng nodded and took the bank card. Okay. That's it. Seeing that Wang Changfeng did not refuse and make other requests, Fang Yuru subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief, but a trace of anger flashed in the depths of her eyes. It seemed that it was because of Lao Wang's straightforwardness. However, this is the best result. At this time, Fang Zhou next to him was still a little confused. He was a crossover. The mind was absorbing the original owner's memory. This is a different world. Many major events in history have also occurred in the history of the world where he was originally, but there are many different local histories, and modern geography and technological development are also different, like a parallel world. The people in front of him are the original owner's family. Fang Yuru. The original owner's mother. Currently the president of Yunxi Group in Nanwu City. With such a beautiful face, it can be imagined that he must have been a celebrity in the school when he was young. A dog-blooded crossing. The background of the story is also accompanied by dog blood. During college, Fang Yuru fell in love with a senior who was 2 years older than her. She ate the forbidden fruit and got pregnant. The senior didn't want to take responsibility and went abroad. Fang Yuru planned to give birth to the child. After her pursuer Wang Changfeng found out, he was willing to take over. Wang Changfeng and Fang Yuru were college classmates. In the same class. Although he was a bootlicker, he was not bad in other aspects except that his family was from the countryside. Handsome. Talented. Unfortunately, he was a bootlicker. He was an extreme bootlicker. Not only did he tell outsiders that the child was his, that child was Fang Zhou, who was in a daze at this time. He also agreed to Fang Yuru's many requests. Marriage of form, not living in the same room. The child would take Fang Yuru's surname after birth. If the two divorced in the future, Fang Yuru would give financial compensation and could not ask for a share of the family property even though Yinsi was just a factory worth less than 10 million at that time. And the company still belonged to Fang Zhou's grandfather. Wang Changfeng explained to both families that Fang Yuru was injured during pregnancy and could not get pregnant again, so he adopted a little girl who was only 3 years old at the time and named her Fang Qinglin. It can be regarded as a companion for his son. This state. It has been going on for more than 10 years. If there had not been an accident a few days ago, Lao Wang might have continued like this. Just over a month ago, Li Dong, Fang Yuru's Prince Charming and Fang Zhou's biological father, appeared and secretly contacted Fang Yuru. Thank you for the invitation. I'm in America. Otilda, also without telling Fang Zhou. 2 days ago, Lao Wang accidentally discovered Fang Zhou's hospitalization record. Confronted with Fang Yuru, Wang Changfeng, who had always been a good man, got angry for the first time and quarreled with Fang Yuru in the bedroom, which was heard by Fang Zhou, who got up at night. The original body could not accept this fact and was in a daze for several days. Fang Yuru activated the emergency plan. Divorce. This afternoon, when others were in class, Fang Zhou climbed up the tree next to the laboratory building and fell from the tree, with his clothes torn. He was discovered by a passing teacher. The two who had just received the certificate received a call from the teacher and went to the school to pick Fang Zhou up. By the way, call Fang Qinglin as well. So now, it is a confession. Fell from the tree. Fang Zhou narrowed his eyes slightly, his eyes flickered. Somewhat speechless about the current situation. God damn it. Did I give the wrong script? Shouldn't he have traveled through time to Old Wang? The middle-aged cowardly man was broken off by the female CEO. After traveling through time, the system gave him a dozen skills, and he pretended to be awesome and slapped the female CEO in the face, making the regretful female CEO cry and beg him not to leave. Chapter 2, Regret. At this moment, Old Wang had already gotten up. His gaze briefly passed over Fang Yuru and swept toward Fang Zhou and Fang Qinglin. The corner of his mouth twitched, forming a gesture that resembled a smile. Oh. He tried to say something but didn't know how to start. Indeed, the two children had no blood relation to him, and he himself had no status in the family. For the past decade or so, influenced by the environment, these two children had called him Dad. But it was hard to say they truly respected this son-in-law from the countryside. Over the years, they had grown accustomed to treating Old Wang as their househusband. He gently shook his head. Old Wang changed his shoes at the door, packed up his slippers into a plastic bag, and tied it to the handle of his suitcase, preparing to leave. Fang Yuru remained seated, her arms crossed on the table, watching as Old Wang left. Dad. Fang Qinglin's voice was choked with sobs. She still hadn't recovered from the shock of the situation, feeling like April Fool's Day had just passed, wondering why the heavens would play such a cruel joke on her. Fang Yuru cast a cold glance at Fang Qinglin, who lowered her head. There was no dramatic, tear-filled turn-around and emotional breakdown like in a TV drama. After a brief pause, Old Wang waved his hand and dragged his suitcase out the door. Most of the suitcase was filled with Wang Changfeng's books, both board and personal. It was heavy, but Wang Changfeng carried it easily with one hand. His back carried a sense of free-spirited indifference. As Old Wang left, Fang Yuru, who had been holding herself rigid, relaxed her shoulders and subconsciously bit her lip. Fang Zhou stood up. Seeing Fang Yuru and Fang Qinglin staring at him strangely, he smiled and said, "I'm going to see Old Wang off." Having cleared his thoughts, Fang Zhou didn't want to comment on his mother. After all, unlike Old Wang, she was his biological mother. But perhaps because of past life experiences, Fang Zhou felt a sense of camaraderie with Old Wang. As for the divorce, it was between them. It was none of his business. However, he couldn't just turn a blind eye to Old Wang leaving. Upon hearing Fang Zhou's words, Fang Qinglin pushed herself up with her hands, seemingly about to stand, but after meeting Fang Yuru's gaze, she quietly sat back down. The door closed. Fang Qinglin couldn't help but speak up. "Mom, what's going on? Why did you and Dad get divorced all of a sudden? Is there some misunderstanding?" Fang Qinglin still didn't know the specifics. As an adopted daughter, although her parents were kind to her, and perhaps even favored her more, there was still a sense of caution in her words. At school, she was always the top student. She seemed to want to tell Fang Yuru that their decision back then was correct. Fang Yuru took a deep breath and adjusted her emotions. The hesitation and timidity that had been in her eyes earlier gradually disappeared. She glanced at her daughter and spoke calmly, "You don't need to worry about this. Right now, your most important task is to study well. The college entrance exam is in 2 months. Don't let this distract you." Fang Qinglin frowned but didn't ask further. Originally, Fang Yuru had planned to tell Wang Changfeng about the situation after the child's exam. She hadn't expected him to find out early and cause a scene. Fang Yuru didn't like explaining, so this was fine by her. Living in a villa area was good for Wang Changfeng, who wasn't fond of socializing, because there were fewer people. But there was a downside to it. Because there were fewer people, he mostly encountered familiar faces. Dragging his suitcase past the neighborhood entrance, security guard Xiao Zhu was surprised. "Wang Ji, you didn't cook today. And you're carrying such a large suitcase, are you going on a trip?" The double lake courtyard had a total of 36 households. As a security guard, Xiao Zhu was familiar with all the residents, and he knew many of their stories. For example, the man dragging a suitcase was known by some as the Fang family's man, like an attached label. Everyone knew Fang Yuru was the president of Yun Silk Group, and this man was her in-law who had moved into the Fang family. Wang Changfeng smiled and nodded. "Got some business, need to head back for a while." Since he didn't know how Fang Yuru would explain the situation to the outside world, old Wang wouldn't take the initiative to tell others about the divorce. After greeting the guard, he ignored the discussions from the security office and left the gate. Walking to the roadside not far away, watching the cars come and go, a trace of confusion flashed in Wang Changfeng's eyes. He subconsciously reached into his pocket. He just pulled out a cigarette when a familiar voice rang out. "Regret it?" Wang Changfeng turned his head to see Fang Zhou standing a few steps away, looking at him with a teasing expression. Wang Changfeng was about to speak but suddenly realized they were no longer father and son. He could only awkwardly smile. "What are you doing here?" The cigarette in his hand subconsciously shrank. Fang Zhou, seeing the cigarette smoke drifting from the tip, smirked and reached into Wang Changfeng's pocket to pull out a pack of Hong Jinling cigarettes and a lighter. "Huh." There was only one left. It seemed old Wang had been smoking quite a bit these past few days. He didn't look as calm as he appeared. Fang Zhou shook out the last cigarette, lit it expertly, and took a deep drag. The nicotine swirled in his lungs, and he exhaled through his nose, slowly dissipating. Seeing this smooth action, Wang Changfeng raised an eyebrow. "You're still young. You should smoke less." Even in the past, old Wang wasn't the stern father figure. So, although he didn't have much presence in the Fang family, he still got along relatively well with the two kids. Fang Zhou chuckled. "Your actions. Looks like you're an old smoker too. After marrying Fang Yuru, you must have had to sneak a cigarette every now and then to satisfy the craving. Being the backup, regretting it." Wang Changfeng was increasingly surprised, feeling like the young man before him had become a different person. But after thinking about all that had happened recently, it seemed the teenager had been through a lot, which might have made him mature quickly. He smiled and replied nonchalantly, "What is there to regret? It's all my own choice. Besides, that's your mom. What else with this Fang Yuru that? Watch out, she might take care of you if she hears you." Fang Zhou's lips curled into a smirk, showing a bit of mockery. He knew that old Wang's indifference wasn't just an act. After 10 years, any excitement or impulsiveness had been worn away, and what remained was perhaps just habit. But while old Wang didn't care, Fang Zhou had some words stuck in his throat. He tilted his head, blowing out a smoke ring. "I mean, do you regret not asking for more compensation? Don't even talk about 10 million, but 100 million. With her obsession with face, she'd definitely find a way to put that together. Yet, you're still thinking of her. Such a warm-hearted guy. Ever heard the saying, warm men come after dogs? Slap." Just as Fang Zhou was enjoying his words, old Wang slapped him on the shoulder with a grin, revealing his bright white teeth. "You little rascal, don't think just because you're no longer my son you can mess around in front of me." Fang Zhou gasped, "I'm just kidding, just kidding." Chapter 3, Essential Skills of a Simpera. Only then did Fang Zhou remember. Although old Wang was gentle and refined, it didn't mean he was weak. He was still a student back then. Old Wang had always been an athletic prodigy. His great-grandfather, who was Old Wang's grandfather, used to be one of the 8th Route Army soldiers, someone who had truly fought on the battlefield and maintained abundant energy throughout his life. Though now over 80 years old, his health was still strong, and he could still work on the farm. When Old Wang was young, everyone of his generation in the family was sent out by the old man to train in the wilderness. Old Wang was the most outstanding among his cousins. Unfortunately, as the old man said, too gentle in nature, full of strength, but lacking perseverance. Fang Zhou still remembered. Not long after Fang Yuru took over the family factory, she made sweeping reforms and fired a batch of parasites. Some stubborn troublemakers in the factory, seeing their jobs at risk, dared to hire hooligans to teach the Fang family a lesson. Late one night, 6 or 7 thugs with wooden sticks and chains came to cause trouble, but Old Wang single-handedly dealt with them. Fang Zhou knew about this. When he was returning to his hometown in Yunhai City with Old Wang, he even ran a few miles to the mountains, hoping to learn from the old man. But after the old man looked at him, he just smiled and showed a harmless expression, completely different from the wise and mysterious image Fang Zhou had in mind. Fang Zhou lost interest immediately. On the roadside, seeing Fang Zhou's exaggerated grimace, Old Wang finally let go. He could tell Fang Zhou had really changed, and that's why he was playfully messing with him. A taxi passed by not far away. Old Wang waved his hand, extinguished the cigarette butt under his foot, tossed it into a trash can a few steps away, and then turned to Fang Zhou. "I'm leaving. If anything comes up, call me." Fang Zhou waved his hand. "Men are like flowers at 40, you're getting there. They say a middle-aged man has 3 big joys: promotion, wealth, and death. Well, I guess you're only halfway there. Find a wife, keep your eyes wide open, beauty doesn't feed you. If you really find one, cherish her. Don't forget to invite me to your wedding." As the taxi drove away, Fang Zhou tossed his cigarette butt, then turned and walked toward the apartment complex. There were still 2 women waiting for him. As soon as he opened the door, he was greeted by the pungent smell of something burning in the living room. Fang Zhou changed his shoes and entered the room, finding the smoke was coming from the kitchen, where even the exhaust fan was at full blast but still didn't help. From the kitchen, 2 voices shouted in panic. Fang Zhou walked in and saw the usually cold, domineering female CEO and the aloof campus beauty, each holding a spatula or a lid, leaning backward with their eyes locked on the smoking pot. Their faces showed pure panic. Fang Zhou helplessly walked over and turned off the stove. The pot was charred black, with some yellowish-white residue still smoking. Next to it were large chunks of chopped tomatoes. Were they trying to make scrambled eggs with tomatoes? Before this, whenever Fang Zhou came home, Old Wang would always have a variety of sumptuous dishes ready. The others never needed to worry about cooking, so they had never lifted a finger. Seeing Fang Zhou staring blankly at the pot, Fang Yuru's face flashed with a momentary embarrassment. She put down the lid and calmly said, "Let us go out to eat." Fang Zhou frowned. Thinking that he had something to discuss with Fang Yuru later, going out to eat would be too much of a waste of time. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it, if President Fang doesn't mind, I'll cook." Going out to eat would take at least an hour, which was too wasteful. Fang Yuru froze for a moment. She could naturally hear the sarcasm in Fang Zhou's voice. Thinking that this situation wasn't fair to Fang Zhou, and that he had every right to be upset, she chose not to respond. Fang Zhou didn't care how Fang Yuru was feeling. He opened the refrigerator. Luckily, there were still some ingredients left. He took out another tomato, a piece of ham, some carrots, eggs, green onions, and leftover rice. There were also potatoes and other things in the kitchen. He began to get to work. He cut the ham into cubes, scored the tomato, blanched it to peel it, and then chopped the potatoes, carrots, and other ingredients. Fang Yuru frowned as she watched Fang Zhou's skilled movements. She was stunned. In Fang Zhou's past life, after graduating from college, he became a corporate drone for a few years. He married through an introduction, but his wife was dissatisfied with his low salary, so he quit his job and started his own business. He had sold goods at street stalls, opened a jewelry store, and even ventured into the restaurant industry, but none of it succeeded. He lost money and his finances grew worse. Poor couples always suffer. With financial issues came many difficulties in life. And after several years of marriage, they still didn't have children. The trivial matters of life caused daily arguments with his wife, and over time, both became exhausted, leading to the end of their short marriage. After the divorce, Fang Zhou picked up his old hobby, writing. It turned out to be a turning point in his life. From earning a few hundred per month at the beginning to earning millions a few years later, things seemed to be going smoothly. During his time writing, Fang Zhou mostly lived alone. Back when he was in the restaurant business, he couldn't stand the black-hearted practices of others, which caused him to close down. Knowing that his own life couldn't rely on ordering takeout all the time, he mostly cooked for himself. Cooking became his hobby, as well as a way to relax. Home-cooked meals were naturally no problem for him. In 20 minutes, the ham-fried rice and a simplified version of Russian soup were on the table. Fang Yuru and Fang Qinglin stared at the delicious-looking food, their eyes full of questions. They had never seen Fang Zhou cook before. Fang Zhou gestured to them. Just eat what's here. He knew the two of them must be puzzled. After all, in Fang Zhou's eyes, both of them were completely helpless in the kitchen, all thanks to old Wang pampering them. But no one said anything about it. Fang Zhou himself, in his previous life, was no different from these two. Xiao Zhu, how did you learn to cook? After taking a bite, Fang Yuru could no longer hold back her surprise and asked. Fang Zhou was focused on eating. Without raising his head, he casually replied. Cooking is an essential skill for a simpra, maybe I have some potential in that area. Or maybe, I used to be a simpra. He looked up and saw two pairs of cold eyes staring at him. Fang Zhou smiled. Just learn it by watching. Fang Qinglin, with her phoenix eyes shining, turned to Fang Yuru and said. Mom, I want to learn to cook. Fang Yuru frowned. Why learn that? It's a waste of time. You'd be better off learning something more useful. I'll get someone to send a housekeeper over. You don't need to worry about cooking or cleaning. Fang Zhou nodded seriously at his younger sister. He said earnestly. Those are things for people who are useless to learn. You're destined for greater things. Don't learn it. Slap. Fang Yuru slammed her chopsticks on the table. She glared at Fang Zhou, her eyes flashing with a dangerous light. Say what you want to say directly, stop being so sarcastic. Fang Yuru thought that by taking this attitude, Fang Zhou would either be scared or ask about the events that happened over the past few days. She had planned to talk to him after the exams, but things had gone awry. And with the teacher's accounts of recent behavior, Fang Zhou's actions these past few days had surpassed her expectations. Especially now. Fang Zhou's reactions felt as if he had become an entirely different person, making Fang Yuru feel a little unfamiliar and even a little anxious. She wanted to take this opportunity to have an open conversation with him. But to her surprise, Fang Zhou changed the subject. He lowered his head and said. Let us not talk about it, let us eat. The three of them didn't say anything else, but Fang Zhou slightly furrowed his brows. Chapter for moving out. Even though it was only a brief contact. However, every time he saw Fang Yuru, his heart was inexplicably moved. There's something strange about the arc. Although Fang Yuru is definitely considered a top beauty. But after all, I am almost 40 years old inside, and I am a tactile person rather than a visual person, so my emotions won't fluctuate too much just by looking at them a few times. Could it be the influence of the original owner? Recalling the series of actions taken by the original owner, Fang Ark found it somewhat unbelievable. Oedipus? Cough cough cough. Ark opens. Mom, I'm planning to move out. Although he traveled through time and integrated the original owner's memories, the thinking of that 40-year-old man was still dominant. With two women under one roof. Moreover, he has to call a woman younger than himself Mom. Ark felt awkward. The most important thing. Thinking of Fang Yuru's previous behavior. Although it was directed at his predecessor, Fang Zhou still felt uncomfortable when he thought about it. But essentially, she is indeed her own mother. However, these words made Fang Yuru suddenly look up and stare at Fang Zhou. In the eyes. Some were in disbelief and some were panicked. Although she had no feelings for Lao Wang, after living together for more than 10 years, Fang Yuru felt a little empty inside when someone suddenly disappeared from the family. At this time Fang Zhou suddenly said he wanted to move out. Fang Yuru was confused. Why move out? The college entrance exam is only 2 months away. Don't act weird and prepare well for the exam. I don't agree. Fang Yuru is as strong as ever. After adjusting her mood, Fang Yuru decided to have a good talk with Fang Zhou. What happened to your father before? Fang Zhou quickly made a stop gesture. The ridicule said. Don't bring up irrelevant people. Then I'll live on campus. Running back and forth every day wastes time. Study hard during this period and try to get into university. Ark knows. Outsiders' perspectives are filtered. Fang Yuru is beautiful and capable, a true goddess. But from the perspective of the family, especially the predecessor, such a mother was somewhat derelict in her duty. Everything had been smooth sailing since childhood, except for the relationship. She has developed a somewhat domineering princess character. Don't like others' disobedience. Fang Yuru frowned and stared into Fang Zhou's eyes, wondering what he was up to. Fang Yuru has always believed that. Boy. You must be independent. So in her past life, her way of educating Fang Zhou and Fang Qinglin was completely different. Especially after the two of them went to high school. Fang Yuru sometimes brings Fang Qinglin to the company to deal with company matters. She also often talks with Fang Qinglin and communicates with her as mother and daughter. And all the matters concerning the Ark were pushed onto Lao Wang. This caused Ark to panic. In order to attract Fang Yuru's attention. The kid in my previous life would cause some trouble every now and then, like pretending to be sick, being tired of studying, and having conflicts with classmates. Just to attract Fang Yuru's attention. Fang Yuru is immune. Now Fang Zhou proposed to live on campus, he must be trying to be cunning again. Fang Yuru decided to agree and see what tricks this kid was up to. Only. Jian Fang Zhou didn't want to mention that person at all. Fang Yuru couldn't help but frown. She had her own considerations for doing that. Of course, it was not because of lingering feelings, but she still had her reasons for making that choice. However, Fang Yuru, who had always maintained the image of a strict mother, was too embarrassed to explain at this time. After dinner. When Fang Zhou was humming a little tune while cleaning up in the kitchen, Fang Qinglin appeared at the kitchen door. Fang Zhou looked at it and said nothing. The relationship between the two is average. Or say. The relationship is somewhat poor. The guy in his previous life had an insecure sense to begin with, and naturally he wouldn't have a good attitude after thinking that an adopted outsider had taken away all of his mother's care. When one is mentally incomplete and unbalanced, it is difficult to avoid saying hurtful words. However, this is not a good time for the brother and sister to have a heart-to-heart talk. Did you just look down on me? Fang Qinglin spoke. Ark was surprised. This girl is really sensitive. The trace of emotion that was just occasionally revealed was actually captured. But Fang Zhou will definitely not admit it. You think too much. Bedroom. Fang Yuru sat in front of the dressing table. Her elegant and charming face was reflected in the dressing mirror, but she looked a little dazed. Fang Qinglin's attitude just now made her feel relieved and a little disappointed. Obedient. But too obedient. Even if you want your children to be obedient, you don't want them to be ungrateful. However, Fang Zhou was a little unexpected. He insisted on sending Wang Changfeng off despite his objections. This kid, is this some new trick? 5 o'clock in the morning. Fang Zhou woke up on time and felt a little uncomfortable looking at the room. It took me a while to realize that I had traveled through time. Get up. Today is Saturday. Senior high school students have to attend classes as normal, but they will have a day off after 2 classes in the afternoon. Fang Zhou had just finished washing up and was about to go out when Fang Yuru, wearing a nightgown, came out of the bedroom with sleepy eyes. I guess he heard some noise outside and came out to see what was going on. Fang Yuru glanced at Fang Zhou. He looked outside again. It was not yet completely light outside, and he asked in a daze. Wake up, what are you doing so early? Fang Zhou was stunned. This is the daily routine of the previous generation. Maybe you are born with little sleep, and about 5 hours of sleep a day is enough, so there is no need to waste your life in bed. Looking at his mother who was still in her pajamas, Fang Zhou subconsciously wanted to avoid looking at her. And a hint of gloom flashed through my heart. How come? Looking at Fang Yuru's stern and scrutinizing gaze, Fang Zhou felt a little helpless. Emotions that just came up. It was definitely an obsession in the original owner's heart. However, Fang Zhou also knew that Fang Yuru knew nothing about that matter, so her attitude at this time was understandable. Just different views. Fang Zhou smiled as usual. I'm going to school and I'll have breakfast on the way. In Fang Yuru's eyes, Fang Zhou at this time was a rebellious teenager in adolescence, or a sulky boy. Thinking about what happened before, it was really unfair to Ark. Fang Yuru slowed down her voice and said, "It's still early. Wait a moment before you leave. I'll take you and Qinglin to school together." Fang Zhou was a little surprised. Before, Fang Yuru would send Fang Qinglin to school, while she would go there by bike by herself. It had been like this since high school. Once, the predecessor tried every possible way to enjoy the same treatment as Fang Qinglin. They were all rejected by Fang Yuru. Now, is it still necessary? So, do you feel guilty about this? Fang Zhou shook his head. That was the thought of his predecessor, not the old man. Thinking about the three of them having to get along in that small space, Ark got goosebumps. He said quickly, "No. Well, I want to exercise, so I'll run over there and stretch my body." When opening the door to go out, Fang Zhou said again, "I'll pack my things and move to the dormitory in the afternoon." When he got outside, Fang Zhou let out a long sigh, and the awkward feeling gradually disappeared. Fang Yuru was standing in the living room, staring towards the door. There was a hint of annoyance in his eyes. How many years? Rarely does this feeling of being out of control occur. It seems that I really need to talk to Xiaozhu. I hope he can be more mature. It was still early, there were not many people on the street, and the park was well landscaped. The distance to school was about 5 kilometers, which usually took half an hour by bike. Fang Zhou jogged all the way. It only took about 20 minutes to get to school, and I was not even out of breath. At the beginning, I adjusted my breathing and slowly got used to the rhythm. Later on, my steps became lighter and lighter, and I felt like I could easily run another 5 kilometers. Chapter 5 Treasure Girl. Fang Zhou is 1.85 meters tall. As for appearance, think about Fang Yuru and the man who made Fang Yuru infatuated. With such genetic inheritance, it goes without saying that Fang Zhou is very handsome. At school, he is considered a school idol. My predecessor was also a person who liked sports. But one thing is for sure, I couldn't run 5 kilometers without panting before. Is this a benefit for time travelers? Last night, Ark also tried to see if he could summon the system. After all, the system is a must for time travelers, and he has written many such books in his previous life. As a result, Ark was busy until midnight before he was sure that the system definitely did not exist and he was just overthinking. But now it seems that it is not nothing. At least I'm physically strong. I had breakfast at the school gate and entered the school. I went to the classroom according to my memory. Morning reading was about to begin. I felt dizzy when I first entered the classroom. Work hard on the 3rd, 4th and 5th days of the 100-day sprint. Study hard and welcome the 7th, 8th and 9th days with a smile. Go all out and change your life with diligence. Never give up and achieve your future with perseverance. There are still 65 days until the college entrance examination. Tear. Squad leader Qiao Jing went up, tore off their 5 and replaced it with a 4. Obviously, these numbers can be reused later, but people just like to tear them off directly, giving people a sense of oppression as if they were the last judgment. Seeing these slogans posted in the classroom reminded Fang Zhou of his senior year in high school in his previous life. The feeling came all at once. But Fang Zhou couldn't help but complain. I went to a DJ. When Fang Zhou saw the countdown board for the college entrance examination, he felt a little pain in his teeth. Just travel through time, why travel to this awkward time? 2 months later, it would be great to travel back to after the college entrance examination. It saves a lot of trouble. Or if I have more time, I can try harder. Even if I traveled to a time when there were still a few days left before the college entrance examination, at least I would have a reason to lie down. There are only 2 months left. No way. To learn from someone. Take advantage of this time to build a good relationship with the top student so that you can show off your skills during the college entrance examination. But others were reborn, and they knew that they were in the same examination room as the top student during the college entrance examination, but I was a time traveler. And Fang Zhou really can't do this. Reborn. 1 month. Why not do something else? Forget it. Do whatever you want. Fang Zhou also looked at it with open eyes. Anyway, unlike other time travelers or reborn people, I have to start from scratch. The person I traveled through time and space to is a rich second generation. Even if you don't make progress, your family still has billions of assets. You can't just ignore your own life and wait for death. There's already a salted fish at home, so why add this one to yours? Ark has a very good attitude. He had this kind of personality in his previous life. I have never thought about making a lot of money and becoming a big boss. I am content with a small fortune as long as I am not hungry or cold. Thinking of this, Fang Zhou's mentality became calmer. Too bad it's science. In my previous life, I was sad and depressed. When I was in middle school, I liked to write lyrics and poems on QQ Space. I did it to show off. I never gave up poetry and classical Chinese in high school. Later, I wrote online articles for so many years, so I had a foundation in literature. I don't think Chinese will be a big problem. When I was a corporate slave, I worked in a foreign company and used foreign languages in my daily work. I also remember some of the applied subject of English. With these, try harder during this period. There should still be some hope of getting into a junior college. Although he traveled through time, Fang Ark had no illusions about going to a prestigious university. As a human being, the most important thing is to be happy. He glanced down at his desk. Sniffed his nose. There is a faint smell of alcohol. My desk is very clean and the surface has a cool touch. Obviously. It was rubbed by someone. And it was the kind that had just been wiped. Fang Zhou looked to the side in surprise. Is it her? This brought back some memories for Ark. It seems that after meeting this classmate, my desk is kept clean every day. The figure next to him seemed to be aware of the gaze coming from next door, and subconsciously lowered his head and shrank his shoulders, trying to bury himself in the book. Just that huge body. This action seems a little, an attempt to hide something makes it even more obvious. Thank you. Fang Zhou spoke, and a panicked look came over. Seeing Fang Zhou staring at her, the girl avoided his gaze. She probably didn't expect Fang Zhou to thank her, and her face turned red all of a sudden. After hesitating for a while, he said, "You're welcome." The sound was so quiet that it was almost inaudible. Fang Zhou smiled and said nothing more, as some information about his deskmate flashed through his mind. I couldn't help but feel a little emotional. It's hard to imagine. How could a girl who was often taken to school in a Porsche Cayenne and a Rolls-Royce Phantom have such a timid and cowardly personality and was often laughed at school? It's because of her body shape that makes her feel inferior. Fang Zhou touched his chin and couldn't help but take a closer look at his deskmate, whom he had not paid much attention to before. The girl's name is Tang Tang. Her shoulder-length hair hung down, covering most of her face. It also forms a self-protection network. Their height is probably above 170 centimeters, probably less than 175 centimeters. This is the conclusion Fang Zhou came to after comparing himself with him. What a pity. His weight is estimated to be over 150 kilograms. If a boy had this height and weight, he would just be considered an ordinary, slightly plump person, but on a girl, it would be quite noticeable. Goose yellow bat-sleeved chiffon shirt, wide leg pants, and white sneakers. The clothes are very tasteful. At least, it has tried its best to cover up some of the shortcomings of her figure. Ark doesn't know much about women's clothing brands. But it's conceivable. Considering Tang Tang's family conditions, these clothes must be very valuable. Fang Zhou seemed to have seen the logo on her clothes on Fang Qinglin's clothes. He is usually quiet in school, like an invisible person. But he is still often ridiculed. At certain stages of life, people will pursue individuality and seek recognition, and will be less tolerant and empathetic. Even if one's original intention is not to do so, in order to express one's individuality or to follow the crowd, one will subconsciously follow and laugh at some unique individuals. Tang Tang is a victim in this situation. Because of her body shape. Before. Although my predecessor disdained and laughed at me. But obviously, I have similar thoughts as my peers. Just looking at it from the perspective of a 40-year-old. She is over 1.7 meters tall, with milky white skin, big eyes with long eyelashes, and a misty and flickering look as if she can speak. What little fat girl. She is obviously a treasure girl. The Fishpond King once said. Choosing a thin woman is for face, choosing a plump woman is for yourself. The old man Fang Zhou had his skin worn away in his previous life, and he firmly believed that he was a tactile type. Girls like Tang Tang have a natural milky white skin. And there is such a delicate appearance. Not obvious in middle school. It's different after I go to college. As the environment around her changes, she will also have the idea of changing. As long as you can lose 30 kilograms, you will be a chubby goddess and beat all the white, young and thin ones. Chapter 6 Atypical Hero Saves Beauty. Boom boom boom. Just as Fang Zhou was sighing, he heard the noise of tables and chairs colliding nearby. A nasty voice came from behind. Fat tiger. Why did you bump into my desk? I don't even have a place to sit, and I can't read my book. Fang Zhou and Tang Tang were in the second to last row, still at the edge. Tang Tang leaned against the wall and Fang Zhou leaned against the aisle. Tables for two are side by side. But the tables behind them are not side by side. The arc was in a normal position, but the desk behind Tang Tang protruded forward more than 10 centimeters. Tang Tang was not small to begin with, but the table behind her protruded so much that it pressed directly against her back, forcing her to lean forward as far as possible. The body is hunched. But the students behind were still not satisfied. His legs were resting on the table legs, shaking carelessly, and the table made a noise when it hit the wall. Tang Tang was also shaken by their collision. However, Zhang Xiao, who was behind, was the first to complain, and jokingly shouted, "Fat Tiger" is the nickname given to Tang Tang by many people, maybe because he watched too many cartoons. This nickname. At the beginning, it was Zhang Xiao who started shouting at the back. Seeing the arrogance behind and the repeated tolerance of the inferior girl, Fang Zhou couldn't help but sigh. Good people are often bullied. Number 3 Middle School is a top-ranked school in Nanwu. The source of students has always been good, and most of them have good grades. Of course, there are also some students who get in through connections, and these are all inevitable personal connections. In order to avoid trouble, the grade gathered those who came in with special relationships into one class, and also put some troublemakers together. It's Fang Zhou's class too. There is an experimental class in the senior year of high school, which is also the so-called elite class. It is right next to the class next door, and Fang Qinglin is from that class. The composition of class 2 is a bit complicated. Some people take pleasure in making fun of others. Moreover, most of these people do not think that they are wrong, but use joking as an excuse for their campus BL. This is the most hateful thing. Fang Zhou turned to look at the arrogant boy and slowly rolled up the A for Chinese textbook in his hand. Zhang Xiao. He is slightly shorter than Fang Zhou, about 1.8 meters tall, but weighs over 200 kilograms. He has a face full of flesh and shaved skin, and when he looks at people, his eyes are slanted, giving a look that says, "I'm not someone you can mess with." Said he was a student. Just living a lazy life. Seeing Fang Zhou turning his head, Zhang Xiao didn't care and continued to tease. "Fat Tiger, you help your handsome boyfriend clean the table every day. Is that your lover? When will you help us neighbors wipe it? Students should help each other." Fang Zhou grinned. "I originally thought that I should tease this guy. After all, a master should have a legitimate reason, but I didn't expect him to take the initiative to ask to take me with him, so that's good." Bang! He pulled the book from his hand. The tightly rolled book was almost like a stick, and it hit Zhang Xiao hard on the face, causing him to fall face up on the ground. "Your mouth stinks, does it reveal you?" After smoking, Fang Zhou stood up and went to the back, pulling the classmates sitting behind him aside. "Now that we have started, either make the other party afraid, or make them powerless to fight back." In his previous life, Fang Zhou's hometown was in the northern rural area of Jiangnan province. The people there were rather hot-tempered and would almost always use weapons when fighting, so this was the creed of the people there. The arc passed by. Zhang Xiao also struggled to get up from the ground and pointed at Fang Zhou. But before he could utter a harsh word, Fang Zhou grabbed the outstretched finger and twisted it in the opposite direction. His tilde. Zhang Xiao was speechless. Fang Zhou also had some knowledge of fighting skills in his previous life. Unless you are a vicious person, you will not be able to withstand having one finger pinched. Control Zhang Xiao's fingers and press him against the wall behind him. Fang Zhou smiled and slapped him twice. Snap, snap. Although he was laughing, Zhang Xiao couldn't help feeling scared. Things happened very quickly, and the students in the front only then noticed the chaos at the back of the classroom. Everyone became agitated and looked back with surprise in their eyes. Neither Zhang Xiao nor Fang Zhou can be considered good students. But there are differences again. Zhang Xiao is a typical bad student. His father runs a construction company and is actually a contractor with hundreds of people under him. He takes on some small projects or subcontracts projects for large companies. Most of the people in the company are migrant workers, and some security guards. People who do this kind of work these days. They are all a bit arrogant. After all, we will also take on some work to assist in demolition. Perhaps influenced by his father, Zhang Xiao was very flamboyant at school and got into fights quite a few times. But this time it seems like there's a thorn in the side. Fang Zhou is an atypical bad student who is usually careless. Fang Yuru has strict requirements, and Fang Zhou wants to perform well in front of his mother, so he won't do anything too out of the ordinary. Zhang Xiao also knew Fang Zhou's family conditions, and Fang Zhou himself was not someone to be trifled with. Normally, they don't interfere with each other. Although also joking. But not excessive. Today he is also targeting Tang Tang. Somehow, Fang Zhou targeted him like a madman, which made Zhang Xiao a little confused. Fang Zhou also doesn't understand why it has to be like this. 1. Have a sense of justice. 2. Knowing the situation of Tang Tang's family, he wanted to show his goodwill and make arrangements. 3. The girl who found the treasure planned to go fishing. 4. I am just free. Fang Zhou just felt unhappy, and had a fire in his heart that he wanted to vent, so he wanted to find something to do. Just when the noise was going on, a shout came from the classroom door. What are you doing? You two, come out with me. You are about to take the college entrance examination and you are still fighting. Let's go to the office. Everyone else returned to their seats for morning reading. Seeing someone standing at the door, everyone returned to their seats obediently. The man was Song Dejian, the head teacher of the senior year class, nicknamed Song Blackface. He usually had a stern face and everyone was a little scared when they saw him. Today is Saturday. There are no classes for other grades, only the senior high school students are there. There are still 2 months before the college entrance examination, and everyone in the senior year group is very nervous, including teachers and students. Song Haimian would come over to inspect from time to time. Just encountered a fight. Fang Zhou and Zhang Xiao went to the corridor outside. After asking a few simple questions and scolding them at the door, Song Haimian led the 2 people towards the office. The classroom immediately started discussing. What's going on? Why are Fang Zhou and Zhang Xiao fighting? I don't know. Usually they don't have any conflicts. Why did it suddenly become like this today? Did Zhang Xiao provoke Fang Zhou? But I never expected Fang Zhou to be so powerful. Zhang Xiao could only get beaten. Yeah, ARC is usually pretty low-key. We are all in the same class, and most people know what the situation is like in our classmates' homes. Although Fang Yuru hardly asked about Fang Zhou's affairs. But there is no wall that is impenetrable. Knowing the ARC family, they are considered to be at the top of the class. Someone saw Tang Tang in a daze. He asked. Da. Tang Tang, what happened just now? They are desk mates. You should know what's going on. At this time, Tang Tang was still in a daze. She has always been timid and self-conscious, and usually doesn't dare to speak loudly to others. She has never seen such a scene. When Fang Zhou and Zhang Xiao were fighting just now, Tang Tang's body was shaking the whole time. It was not until her classmates asked her about it that she slowly came back to her senses. My heart was also filled with an inexplicable emotion. The ARC was for myself. I looked up at the classmate next to me. Tang Tang clenched her fists, as if to cheer herself up. Ignoring the questions from other students around him, he pushed through the crowd, rushed out of the classroom and ran towards the office. Chapter 7 Matching the Head Teacher and Dad. Class 1 is next door. Although the experimental class are good kids. But they were all a group of teenagers, and they heard the noise coming from the next class, as well as Song Haimian's scolding. They also knew that there was a fight in the next class. Many people were looking up. Then I saw Song Haimian taking 2 people to the office. Being reminded, Fang Qinglin also looked up to the window, and happened to meet a familiar gaze. And nodded to myself with a calm smile. Fang Qinglin turned his head. But his brows were slightly furrowed. Office. In addition to Song Haimian, Fang Zhou and Zhang Xiao, there was also a woman in her 30s with a ponytail. This is Sun Jielin, the head teacher of Fang Zhou's class. The composition of Class 2 is complex. After thinking for a while, Sun Jielin said, I have told you all the reasons that need to be said. It's already this time and you're still fighting in the class, not paying attention to the impact at all. Fang Zhou, Zhang Xiao, I won't let your parents handle this matter. But I will communicate with your parents by phone. Zhang Xiao's face turned dark. Although he is a bit rough, he is still a student after all, and he is also afraid of his father. His father is a rough man, but he wants his son to be better off, at least to work hard so that he can spend some money to send his son to college. If I knew I was fighting at school. A meal is indispensable. However, Zhang Xiao was also glad that it was teacher Sun who made the call. She is a relatively calm person and won't add fuel to the fire like other teachers. Arc opens. Teacher Sunday. I have something, can I talk to you alone? Sun Jielin was a little strange. However, she still asked Zhang Xiao to wait in the office. She and Fang Zhou went outside and walked to the stairs at the end of the corridor. Fang Zhou said, Teacher. Lao Wang and my mother divorced. Usually my affairs are handled by Lao Wang. Now that I'm divorced and alone, it's difficult for him to take care of my affairs. You don't need to make this call. Sun Jielin was stunned. She knew the situation at Fang Zhou's home. I know that Fang Zhou's mother is the president of Yunxi Group, but Fang Zhou's affairs, such as parent-teacher meetings, are all attended by Fang Zhou's father. There were no signs before. Are they really getting divorced? Seeing that Sun Jielin didn't believe it, Fang Zhou said, I can't really lie to you about this. Why don't you give Lao Wang a call and confirm it with him? Sun Jielin actually took out her cell phone, found Wang Changfeng's number and called him. Just when the call was connected, there was a sound of footsteps coming from the stairs next to her. Tang Tang came up the stairs and saw that her head teacher seemed to be on the phone, standing next to her in a daze. Sun Jielin was a little embarrassed. Fang Zhou asked me to come out and talk about this matter, he definitely didn't want others to hear it. At this moment, classmates came and she was about to walk away. Fang Zhou took the phone and turned on the speakerphone. The old king's voice came. Hello, Mr. Sunday. It's class time now, right? I'm calling. Is there something going on at the Ark? It's not hard to tell from his voice that Lao Wang is a little worried. Ark opens. Old Wang. That's right. I told Teacher Sun that you were kicked out, but Teacher Sun didn't believe me. Can I confirm it with you? Lao Wang. Sun Jielin? Tang Tang. There was silence on both ends of the line. A quiet neighborhood. Wang Changfeng, who had just found a new residence and was packing his things, was holding the phone in one hand and sorting books with the other. He fell silent when he heard the voice coming from the other end of the phone. I'm shameless. Brat. Next time we meet, I will definitely let you know what it means for a loving father and a filial son. But Lao Wang is worthy of being Lao Wang. Soon said. Teacher Sun, I did divorce Fang Zhou's mother, but Fang Zhou's matter. Lao Wang wanted to continue speaking, but he heard a beep, beep, beep sound. Lao Wang was stunned and looked at the phone. I threw my phone on the table and continued to clean the house, but the corners of my mouth curled up slightly, and I couldn't help mumbling. You little bastard. The other end. Sun Jielin saw the mobile phone stuffed in her hand. He stared at Fang Zhou blankly. It seemed like he didn't even have time to say a word when his cell phone just called him. Fang Zhou smiled and said, Teacher Sunday. In fact, Lao Wang was kicked out of the house with nothing. As a man, this kind of thing is bound to be a bit embarrassing, so don't rub salt into his wounds. By the way, Mr. Sun, Lao Wang is actually a pretty good person. How about you try contact? He's only 38, about your age. Besides, he is a very easygoing person with a good temper. He will definitely treat my junior sister well. You are not too old either. If you want, you can have another child. Lao Wang has no presence in my family. But his books are quite popular and he earns quite well. He's also a handsome man. If he's not a diamond, he's at least a golden bachelor. He's not bad as a husband. Tang Tang was dumbfounded. I was shocked when I heard about the changes in Fang Zhou's family. Seeing Fang Zhou at this moment, he seemed like a matchmaker, wanting to bring his father and his class teacher together. Sun Jielin's face turned red. This feeling. It's like going home during the holidays and facing the elders at home. Ark has a very peaceful mentality. No matter how good Lao Wang's attitude is, it is impossible for him to feel resentful when encountering such a thing. Now Fang Zhou is also thinking about getting Lao Wang out as soon as possible. Of course. Also some ideas for someone to take a look at. Given Lao Wang's personality, it would be better for him to find someone to live with. Sun Jielin sounds familiar and has a good personality. Of course. Whether they can succeed depends on themselves. Sun Jielin said unhappily. Okay, go back to the classroom. Tang Tang, you're coming here as their business, right? I already know about it. I will remind Zhang Xiao to be careful in the future and not to bully others again. I'll go call Zhang Xiao. Speaking of. Sun Jielin walked towards the office with hurried steps. Fang Zhou stroked his chin and looked in the direction where Sun Jielin left, his eyes flickering. Chapter 8 Madman. At the beginning. Ark is indeed a joke mentality. But if this thing succeeds, it would be really great. Although they are all the cause and effect of the original body. However, Fang Zhou is grateful to Lao Wang and hopes that he can find someone to live with. Teacher Sun has taught the class for a year and everyone knows his personality. Be a daughter-in-law. What a good candidate. What's more, the two of them have some connection. Lao Wang really has no presence in the Fang family and is just a house husband. However, he was a well-known figure in school during college. He is also a great talent. It was quite busy taking care of two kids at the beginning. However, after Fang Zhou and Fang Qinglin went to school, he had more free time, but it was all fragmented time, so he picked up the previous things and started writing. He has published many articles in newspapers and magazines. Several novels have also been published. In a circle. Lao Wang is still very famous. He is now also one of the directors of Nanwu City Writers Association. Of course, compared with the Fang family, whose assets are close to 2 billion, it is not so conspicuous. Teacher Sun likes literature. He came into contact with Lao Wang's works a few years ago and also participated in some reading clubs and lectures. Gradually, he became a fan of Lao Wang. Seen the real person. Not sure about other situations. Because Lao Wang rarely participates in activities or appears in public. Outsiders only know his pen name and know very little about his real life. Until senior year of high school. Lao Wang came to attend the parents' meeting. Sun Jielin recognized him and realized that Lao Wang was actually Fang Zhou's father. Teacher Sun also knew about comrade Lao Wang's admiration for Fang Zhou. He had recommended several of Lao Wang's articles to students during previous classes. So, Fang Zhou just felt it. It is indeed a good idea to bring these two people together. Ark, what's wrong? Tang Tang looked at the dazed Fang Zhou, with a hint of complicated emotions in her eyes. Only then did she realize what Fang Zhou had experienced. Fang Zhou waved his hand. Let's go. But when I reached the stairs, I didn't rush. Instead, wait around the corner. When Zhang Xiao came over, Fang Zhou stepped forward, grabbed his neck and pressed him against the wall. Pupper, I gave that guy 2 more big slaps. I remember. If you keep pushing me, I'll beat you up. If you're unhappy, you can go and complain to Teacher Sun now. After saying. Fang Zhou Shiran left with the confused Tang Tang. Zhang Xiao was also confused. He was naturally upset after being slapped twice by Fang Zhou, but he couldn't bring himself to go to the teacher to complain. Thinking of Fang Zhou's eyes just now. The revengeful mentality that I had when I came out of the office just now gradually faded away. Madman. This was the only thought Zhang Xiao had at the moment. After returning to the classroom, I saw that Fang Zhou and Tang Tang had not returned yet. Zhang Xiao moved his desk to another corner of the classroom. If you can't afford to offend me, then you can afford to hide from me. Fang Zhou's 2 moves just now really scared him. Let us start in the classroom. I was attacked by the Ark accidentally. But just now in the office building, when Fang Zhou grabbed Zhang Xiao's neck, he struggled hard but couldn't get free, and he also saw Fang Zhou's eyes, which was too crazy. Why would a normal person compete with a madman? Zhang Xiao successfully convinced himself. But such psychological comfort cannot convince other students in the class. After the two were taken away, people in the classroom were discussing what would happen to them and whether they would be punished by the school. Seeing Zhang Xiao coming back, he moved the table to another corner. Although I don't know the specific situation. But I know Zhang Xiao is giving in. When Fang Zhou and Tang Tang came back from outside, they were greeted with stares. Fang Zhou faced it calmly, but Tang Tang kept his head down all their way to the back. Only then did I realize that Zhang Xiao had moved away. Fang Zhou smiled and sat down calmly. Next to him, a guy with eyes narrowed into slits when he smiled and looked a bit delicate came over. Lao Fang, what's going on? I came late today, and I heard that you and Zhang Xiao had a fight. What? Are you going to be a hero saving my? Tang Tang lowered her head. But his ears turned red. The handsome boy is called Hong Xiaolong, and he has a good relationship with Fang Zhou. The family is in the shipping business, and the assets of the Hong family are similar to those of the Fang family. Hong Xiaolong and Fang Zhou are both bad students who are both handsome and bad. But Hong Xiaolong is a bit feminine. The arc is more sunny. Because of their similar family backgrounds and personalities, the two gradually became friends. Hong Xiaolong has heard what happened from his classmates. He glanced at Zhang Xiao not far away. Whispered. Should we find someone to warn him? Zhang Xiao's family has assets of 10 or 20 million, and both the Hong family and the Fang family are 100 times more than his. Naturally, Hong Xiaolong would not take Zhang Xiao seriously. What's more, Hong Xiaolong's family is in the shipping business. His father's company has more than a dozen shipping ships and many warehouses in several ports in Nanwu all year round. The Hong family's ways are even more wild. Zhang Xiao's family and Fang Zhou Hong Xiaolong's family are not on the same level. That means we are still classmates now. After graduation, there will be no intersection. Arc waved. Forget it. After being taught a lesson, does he still dare to jump? Hearing this, Hong Xiaolong became a little excited. Although he played with Fang Zhou a lot, he had never seen Fang Zhou fight with anyone. I just heard from classmates that Fang Zhou had a big outburst today and beat up Zhang Xiao, but it's a pity that he didn't see it. What a pity. Knowing that Zhang Xiao couldn't make any waves, Hong Xiaolong still reminded him. He doesn't dare to do anything at school. But you know that, too. There are quite a few people in his family, and some of them are bound to want to be his loyal followers. Be careful that he might play dirty tricks on you. Fang Zhou smiled disdainfully. That's just to cause trouble for his father. Do you really think you are a member of society? By the way, I might need your car tonight. Keep the line open. Hong Xiaolong nodded in agreement. He always felt that Fang Zhou was different now than before. He had a very free and easy feeling, and his tone and momentum of voice were also different. The feeling is similar to facing the uncles in the family. Hong Xiaolong was extremely envious. After Hong Xiaolong left, Tang Tang raised her head and glanced timidly at Fang Zhou. After hesitating for a moment, he lowered his head under the book in front of him. He turned his head to look at Fang Zhou and asked, "You need a car? Or I can ask someone to send my dad's car over. Or my mother's." Fang Zhou quickly shook his head. No, it's too much trouble. Xiaolong is such a show-off, so let him be a truck driver again. Tang Tang thought about it and didn't insist anymore. After looking at Fang Zhou, his face turned red again. Hands under the table. I don't know what he is tinkering with. After hesitating for more than 10 seconds, he took out a small pink backpack. He unzipped the bag, took out a piece of chocolate with foreign words on it, and handed it to Fang Zhou. Said, "Eat some chocolate. My dad asked someone to buy this for me. It's delicious. Every time something unhappy happens, eat something sweet. My mood will instantly improve." Chapter 9 confiscated her candy. Fang Zhou was stunned. Then he showed a devilish smile. The claim that sweets can make people, but he didn't think of rejecting Fang Zhou's arrangement. And Tang Tang didn't realize it either. If someone had mentioned her weight problem before, she would definitely feel uncomfortable, but when Fang Zhou said this just now, she didn't feel anything was wrong. There is also a sense of being cared for. However, Tang Tang carefully hid this ignorant feeling. Tang Tang knew it very well. Fang Zhou is the idol of many girls. Although I don't know why Fang Zhou wants to help me today. But the girl, who has always been self-abased, would not mistakenly think that Fang Ark was attracted to her. She was already very happy to be able to chat with Fang Ark like a friend. Can't overstep your authority. Maybe in the end we can't even be friends anymore. It was just that when all her precious candies and chocolates arrived at the hole in the table of the Ark, Tang Tang seemed to see the good things in her food cabinet suddenly grow wings and slowly fly away. My heart hurts so much. Seeing Tang Tang in a daze. He licked his lips subconsciously. Fang Zhou actually felt that the little fat girl's actions were somewhat cute. Bar. 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 This is a young girl. How shameless. This idea is very dangerous. Although it is said that men have the same attitude towards love from the age of 18 to 80, they all like 18-year-old girls. But the love at the age of 18 is definitely different from the love at the age of 40. There are experiences from a previous life. A 40-year-old's mind, an 18-year-old's body. Fang Zhou didn't even believe himself that he would not become a scumbag in the future. But scum is scum. Be sure to avoid harm. With the personality of this little girl, she definitely can't afford to play a game called love. Seeing Tang Tang's pitiful look, Fang Zhou took out a piece of candy. Doesn't look that sweet. Hand it over and say. To prevent withdrawal symptoms. I'll give you one piece. You can only eat one piece a day to satisfy your craving. Tang Tang's eyes lit up. She happily peeled off the candy wrapper and stuffed the peanut candy into her little mouth. Her long eyelashes fluttered and she squinted her eyes in satisfaction, like a British shorthair. Ark. Does teacher Sun know about what happened between you and Zhang Xiao just now? Are you okay? Squad leader Xiao Jing came over with a concerned look on her face. Fang Zhou turned his head and looked at Xiao Jing, who was standing next to him with a smile on his face, until Xiao Jing's eyes began to avoid him. Then he turned around and said with a smile. Fine. Xiao Jing heaved a sigh of relief and said quickly. That's good. I'll go back now. After saying that, he left quickly, but his back looked a little embarrassed. The other people in the class watched in secret. Many people know it. Xiao Jing, the beauty of their class, is interested in Fang Zhou, but it seems that Fang Zhou is not interested in her. It seems that this time we have failed again. Looking at Xiao Jing's back, Tang Tang said enviously. It's beautiful. Xiao Jing can be called the class belle, so she must be pretty, and most importantly, she has a slim figure, which is what Tang Tang envies. Fang Zhou glanced at Xiao Jing. Not caring. It's okay. Tang Tang just remembered and pursed her lips and said. That's right, Fang Qinglin is your sister, so naturally you have higher standards. Xiao Jing was called the class belle by her classmates. Even in the entire grade, she was among the top few. However, no one ever called her the school belle because of Fang Qinglin from the next class. Fang Zhou shook his head. Don't underestimate yourself. As long as you can lose a little weight, you will definitely be no worse than Fang Qinglin's skinny girl. As for Xiao Jing, she is far worse. The Ark is not a comfort. We are still in middle school and our relationships are relatively simple. After going to college, you have one foot in society, and your future path will be different. Based on Tang Tang's family background and her own foundation. Maybe we'll meet again later. There really is a world of difference. Tang Tang's long eyelashes fluttered, and she seemed a little unconvinced, but looking at Fang Zhou's expression, it seemed that he was not entirely joking. Tang Tang was somewhat moved. Or. Try it. In front of the classroom. After Xiao Jing returned to her seat, Zhao Zhenzhen, who had a round face at the same table, was a little excited. Xiao Jing, what did you say to Fang Zhou just now? After all, she was a girl and was very curious about the news. Xiao Jing lowered her head and whispered. Ark seems to have become a different person. But, it seems like he still doesn't like to deal with people. Xiao Jing was just comforting herself. When she went there just now, she clearly saw Fang Zhou and Tang Tang were chatting happily. Zhao Zhenzhen whispered. My male god. I'm so handsome. I didn't expect that fighting would be so good. Did you see that? Even Zhang Xiao has to retreat and move away on his own. How cool. Like fighting. If Fang Zhou heard this, he would definitely complain. With this kind of thinking, it would be easy for Wang Mao to succeed. The class next door. Fang Qinglin's desk mate ran back. Share the gossip you just heard. Qinglin, I found out. The people in class 2 said that just now your brother, Fang Zhou, had a fight with another boy in their class, the tall and strong girl, because of the fat girl. Wow, I didn't know your brother was so brave. Are you brave? How childish. But, he fought with others for a girl? Fang Qinglin frowned slightly. Soon it was time for class and Mr. Jin, the math teacher, came into class 2 classroom with the lesson plan. He was a little old man in his 50s. After coming in, I looked at the back of the classroom. I guess he also knows what happened just now. Emphasize one sentence. The second mock test will be conducted next week. The college entrance examination is only 2 months away, so everyone should pay attention to reviewing. After this period of time, when everyone enters society and looks back, they will find that their high school classmates are the most unforgettable. I won't talk about that. There's still some time anyway. I am willing to seize this time to work hard and get a few more points in the exam, which may change my life. Of course, I don't mean to do that. Don't disturb other students. Lao Jin was delighted. Many students turned their heads to look at the back of the classroom. Everyone knows that Lao Jin was talking about what happened between Fang Zhou and Zhang Xiao just now. But by this time, the teacher doesn't want to have a long speech with you. After saying a few words casually, he began to review the key knowledge points for everyone. Fang Zhou was surprised to find out. I thought I wouldn't understand. Unexpectedly, when Lao Jin mentioned the knowledge points, the corresponding knowledge reserves could actually pop up in his mind. However, he felt a little vague about some details that the teacher did not mention. Benefits for time travelers. Fang Zhou's eyes began to light up. When Lao Jin started explaining the test paper, Fang Zhou opened his textbook. Interesting. It turns out that the benefits of being a time traveler are not only in terms of physical fitness, but also in terms of brain power and knowledge. Arc feeling. It seems to be getting better. Chapter 10 Fang Yuru's fatigue. Tang Tang's grades are average. Under normal circumstances, the total score of the 5 subjects is around 550 points. According to the score lines in previous years, it should be a safe bet to get into a second-tier university. If you are lucky enough, you may be able to get into a first-tier university. The main reason is that she is a little biased in her studies. He is above average in other subjects, but often fails in Chinese. If the score in Chinese can be improved a little, I will basically be able to get into the first place. What happened this morning made it impossible for Tang Tang to focus all her attention on the teacher, and her eyes kept drifting to the next room. She discovered it too. Fang Zhou's facial expressions were very expressive in this class. At first he was confused, but later he was surprised, as if he really understood it. Then he lowered his head and turned the pages of the book. He turned the pages very quickly, but it seemed as if he was really reading it and took a long time. But as soon as the bell rang, he rushed out. After a while, came back with a pile of books. Tang Tang thought she was looking for study materials, but after reading it carefully, she was speechless. Martial arts, exploration and decryption, youth tribe, boys and girls. These are all extracurricular books that everyone likes to read. Ark took back the magazines. He didn't read the content, but instead carefully looked at the cover, title page, and back cover of the magazine. He also wrote and drew on a piece of paper, as if he was recording something. Tang Tang couldn't hold back her movements of pretending to read. Turning around and asking curiously, "What are you doing?" Fang Zhou threw the small book of impurities aside and was writing down the contents on a piece of paper. Seeing Tang Tang asking, he said indifferently, "Make money." Tang Tang was dumbfounded. Thinking of the news I just heard from Fang Zhou's family. Subconsciously speaking. Are you short of money? I still have some pocket money, about 1 million, I'll give it to you. Tang Tang also realized that there was something wrong with this statement. She waved her jade-like little hands in panic and said quickly, "I'm lending it to you. You can pay it back anytime. It doesn't matter if you don't pay it back." Music. I treat you as a friend, but you are greedy for my body. Sure, little rich girl, you know how to use money to buy happiness at such a young age. You are vulgar, but I would rather die than surrender. I thought the little girl would be shy and embarrassed to respond. Unexpectedly, Tang Tang blinked. He murmured, "Are we friends now?" The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Ark was speechless. The girl didn't hear a word I said. Fang Zhou no longer cared about her. Let's talk about money. If we can save our dignity, Fang Zhou will not be short of anything. He has a card with about 200,000 yuan in it, which was all the New Year's money he received in previous years and saved up slowly. However, Fang Zhou already had an idea in mind, so he naturally felt embarrassed to use the money in the card. No way. Have some shame. You can't just give Fang Yuru the cold shoulder and spend Fang family's money with a clear conscience. You can only figure it out yourself. The painful experience in his previous life told Fang Zhou that he was not cut out for business. With almost no hesitation, Fang Zhou chose the way to make money writing books or being a programmer. So I first need to familiarize myself with the literary style of this world. Which magazines can make money? A lot of things from previous lives. It's all in Fang Zhou's mind. It's okay to just copy it over. How can the work of a cultured person be called plagiarism? That's called paying tribute. This world is very different from the previous life in terms of entertainment, and is much more backward than the previous life. This also gives Ark room to operate. The next class is Chinese. When Sun Jilin entered the classroom, she glanced at Fang Zhou and her face blushed slightly. Fang Zhou was flipping through his Chinese textbook with his head down. I didn't notice it. No one else noticed anything unusual about Sun Jilin. After seeing the contents of the book, a memory network was quickly established in his mind, and Fang Ark felt at ease. The morning class is over. The students walked out of the school one by one. The school also has a cafeteria, but many people go home for lunch. For example, Tang Tang. Knowing that Fang Zhou was eating outside the school at noon, Tang Tang hesitated whether to ask Fang Zhou to join them, but ultimately she didn't have the courage to do so. I finally arrived at the school gate and saw the familiar Labor Day parked at the door. "Miss, please get in the car." The driver got off. Tang Tang's father has something to do at the company today, so her mother has to cook at home. Her father arranged for a driver to take Tang Tang back. Yunxi Group. Fang Yuru stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in the office, holding the phone in her hand. "I'll arrange it. Don't forget what you promised before." "No need to promise, just remember your words and I'll contact you later after I've determined the address." Knock knock knock. After hanging up the phone, there was a knock on the office door. Fang Yuru quickly adjusted her expression and turned into the calm and composed female president. "Come in." Chen Jing, director of the president's office, came in. "Put down some documents." "Mr. Fang, these are some documents that Xiao Zhang wants you to sign. I brought them here by the way. Please take a look." "That's right. You told me before. I discovered that something must have happened with Mr. Chen. Recently, several decisions of the company have been stuck with President Zhao. It seems that Sihai Group can't wait any longer and plans to take action. We should also be prepared." Seeing that it was Chen Jing, Fang Yuru rubbed her forehead in relaxation. Bad things have been happening one after another recently. It gives Fang Yuru a headache. Seeing Fang Yuru like this, a hint of worry flashed in Chen Jing's eyes. She joined Yunxi Group right after graduation. At that time, it was just a factory. Chen Jing was recruited by Fang Yuru herself to the company shortly after she took over Yunxi. It has been more than 10 years. Although he is only in his early 30s, he is considered a veteran of the group. There are also stock options. From clerk to current assistant to the president. In addition to being a superior subordinate relationship, Fang Yuru and I are also friends and know each other's lives very well. Chen Jing sighed and said, "Mr. Fang, there is never enough work to do. You've been too tired recently. Find some time to take a vacation and have a good rest." Chen Jing has been Fang Yuru's assistant for several years, and has been transferred to other departments. Now she is in the president's office. Not only does she come into contact with company affairs, but she is also inevitably exposed to Fang Yuru's family affairs. He is considered a butler. She probably knows the most about Fang Yuru's affairs, including her divorce. Fang Yuru said tiredly. "Wait until I'm done with this busy period. One or two of them are not worry-free. Okay, I know all these things, just take them from their file and arrange them. Keep keeping an eye on Chen Changxing. Tang family residence. It is even more spacious than Fang's villa, like a small garden. The various furnishings and decorations inside are also antique, and many of the ornaments in the house are of auction quality. Here. That is, ordinary ornaments. There's nothing I can do about it, since that's what her family does. When Tang Tang returned home, a pretty and plump woman in home clothes brought the last dish to the table. Seeing Tang Tang happily greeted. Tang Tang, wash your hands and eat quickly. Today I made several dishes that you like. This woman is Tang Tang's mother, Lan Jiyar. Today is their weekend. She has time to cook. If there is something going on in the business, even if Lan Jiyar cannot cook herself, she will arrange for her aunt to cook some dishes, and she will also come back to eat with Tang Tang. Chapter 11, The Pig That Eats Cabbages appears. Although there were only mother and daughter at home. However, Lan Jiyar cooked 6 dishes, only 2 of which were vegetable dishes, 1 broccoli and soup, and 1 vegetable salad, and the rest were meat dishes. But the portions are not that big. Wash your hands and sit down. Looking at the table full of delicious food, Tang Tang's eyes suddenly lit up. I couldn't help swallowing. But still got up with difficulty. He picked up the bowl in front of him and brought it to the rice cooker, then took out half of the full bowl of rice. Lan Jiyar was a little strange. Don't want to eat rice today. Then eat more vegetables. See how the sweet and sour pork tenderloin that Mom made today tastes. Is it any better? Also, I prepared some ribs for stewing beef brisket. I'll make you sweet and sour pork ribs tonight. I know my daughter likes sweets and meat. Lan Jiyar was well prepared. He picked up a piece of sweet and sour pork and put it into his daughter's bowl. No, I'll do it myself. Tang Tang quickly put her hand over the bowl of rice. Staring at the red sweet and sour pork tenderloin, he swallowed his saliva madly and said reluctantly. From today on, I will eat less high-calorie foods. I want to lose weight. Speaking of. Put a piece of broccoli in the bowl. He chewed it fiercely in his mouth as if he had a grudge. In fact, her mother's cooking skills are quite good, and the vegetables taste quite good, but for people who like meat, it is definitely a torment to see it but not be able to eat it. Lan Jiyar was stunned. Seeing my daughter's serious look, I subconsciously said. Why do you want to lose weight? You are not fat at all. And eat more to stay healthy. Tang Tang chewed broccoli while muttering in dissatisfaction. Not fat yet, my classmates call me Fat Tiger. I can't eat so much anymore, otherwise it will be bad for my health. Some people say that if I lose weight, I will be beautiful. Lan Jiyar frowned slightly. He glanced at his daughter who was trying hard to eat grass and said calmly. What Fat Tiger? Is there anyone bullying you at school? I don't think I've heard you say this before. Who is so annoying? Although he spoke in a casual tone, Lan Jiyar had already secretly become alert and carefully inquired about the situation. Lan Jiyar knew her daughter's character well. If it's not particularly excessive, she definitely won't mention it. Tang Tang felt that Zhang Xiao was indeed quite annoying, and she puffed her lips and said. What's there to say? But it's all right now. Thinking about what happened today, Tang Tang's mouth corners unconsciously raised. Fortunately, he exists. Bullying is different from fighting. Many times, it happens imperceptibly, like in the case of Tang Tang. Being called a nickname. Bullied by the person at the back table. In the past, Tang Tang would never tell her family about this kind of thing, thinking that it would pass as long as she endured it. Telling them about it might cause more trouble. She is a person who fears trouble. But today Fang Zhou solved this problem. Everyone in the class already knew that Fang Zhou beat Zhang Xiao because he bullied him. After being retold several times, it has become very different from the original version and has truly become the legend of the hero saving the fat man. This morning. I haven't heard of the nickname Fat Tiger anymore. Tang Tang no longer cared about this matter, and was even secretly grateful. That's why I mentioned this matter frankly in front of my mother. I saw my mother staring at me. Tang Tang said. Mom, it's really over. Fang Zhou stepped forward to teach Zhang Xiao a lesson. No one calls me by this nickname anymore today. Ark. I have some impression of this name. He is a very handsome boy. Lan Jiyar seemed to have seen that boy at the previous parent-teacher meeting. After all, that boy was too dazzling. And the girl at home had mentioned this name before. Lan Jia understands clearly. My daughter has had a good appetite since she was young. Previously, Lan Jia and Tang Tang's father were worried about Tang Tang's health, and had thought about controlling Tang Tang's diet. But the girl likes it and is very happy every time she eats sweets. Besides, the elders in the family strongly oppose dietary control, so we no longer care about it. At this moment, my daughter actually suggested losing weight. He also mentioned that someone said she would be beautiful if she lost weight. Lan Jia subconsciously guessed that it was the boy named Fang Zhou. Are the cabbages in my house going to be eaten by pigs? I know my girlfriend has a sensitive personality. Lan Jia didn't ask directly, but said casually. You mentioned Fang Zhou before. I think you are my deskmate now. So, I helped you today. In this case, we should treat them to a meal to express our gratitude. This is courtesy. Is that so? It seems to be true. Why didn't I think of it before? Thinking about having dinner with Fang Zhou, Tang Tang was a little excited, but a little unsure. That. I'll ask Fang Zhou this afternoon. I don't know if he has time. He seems to be very busy lately. The mother and daughter were eating. After some indirect questioning, Lan Jia roughly understood what happened in the morning. Putting aside the matter of her daughter's first love, Lan Jia couldn't help but frown at the fact that her daughter was given a nickname. As an adult, I naturally know how much harm that kind of subtle bullying can do to people. I felt more grateful towards Ark. I am also a bit curious. Looking at the expression on her daughter's face when she mentioned the Ark, Lan Jia knew exactly what she was thinking. Well, let the kid's father worry about this matter. But Lan Jia still reminds. The college entrance examination is only 2 months away. You have a good chance of getting into a top-tier university now. Don't be distracted during this period, especially in Chinese. Have another chicken drumstick. This stuff doesn't have much fat, so it's okay to eat some. After dinner, Lan Jia is preparing to send Tang Tang to school. Unexpectedly, Tang Tang returned to the room, took out her pink bag, took out a few boxes of chocolates and stuffed them into it. Lan Jia is curious. You said you wanted to eat less sweets, why did you bring them? Tang Tang searched for a while. She found a piece of candy that was not so sweet but tasted good, carefully placed it on top, zipped it up, and patted her bulging little bag. It seems that he is afraid that his position inside will change. Then I said to my mother, I won't eat it anymore. But Fang Zhou seems to like eating it. And he said I could have 1 piece a day for withdrawal symptoms. Lan Jia couldn't help but roll her eyes. This silly girl. Noon. There is a small restaurant right at the school gate. Fang Zhou had lunch with Hong Xiaolong. Hong Xiaolong's family is in the shipping business. His father is often not in Nanwu, and his mother also has to take care of the company's affairs and has no time to take care of him, so he has to prepare his lunch by himself. Return to the classroom. There is still some time before the afternoon class. Fang Zhou picked up a pen and began to think about the outline of the story he had prepared. Making money is important. Do not use previous deposits. I still have a few thousand yuan in my hand, which was given to me by Lao Wang before. It's strange to say, although Fang Zhou didn't want to touch the Fang family's money, he didn't have any psychological burden to use old Wang's money, who had no blood relationship with him. But it is limited to what was given before. Now Fang Zhou wants to find a way to make money quickly, so he has set his sights on those magazines, which are actually some youth literature. Chapter 12 Writer. I suspect you are cursing. The world takes copyright seriously. Relative. They are more accepting of paying for knowledge. In the morning, Fang Zhou flipped through those magazines to see which ones were published by commercial publishers and what the writing styles and preferences of those magazines were. You can't fight a battle without preparation. Actually, I want to be famous. It's faster to go through those official publishing houses. But Ark came here to solve his stomach problem, so naturally he had to choose the one with more money. It's youth literature. And people at this age have to like watching it. It's nothing more than those stories about the ignorant emotions of youth. The development of online literature in this world is like a barbaric period compared to when Ark traveled through time in the previous life, and is just in its infancy. I want to write some youth stories. Have the upper hand. The kind that tortures people to the point of being miserable. Just add some gimmicks and heart-wrenching plots and you can earn a lot of tears from young boys and girls. The payment is based on the number of words. Fang Zhou plans to start each story at 20,000 words. As long as the story has many twists and turns and hardships, and is long, it is called a story that can be taught, and the plot is tortuous and ups and downs. There is no computer now. Art can only list the details first. A complete story emerges in my mind and the writing structure is taken into account. 1, 2. When Fang Zhou was listing the details of the fifth story, Tang Tang came. As soon as they sat down, Tang Tang put a bottle of Coke on Fang Zhou's table and a bottle of purified water on her own table. Then he said, I ate half a bowl of rice at noon. And I didn't eat anything high in calories, mainly broccoli and vegetable salad, but my mom insisted that I have a chicken drumstick. We'll be off after 2 classes in the afternoon. I'm also thinking about going to the gym to exercise. Like reporting work. Fang Zhou put down his pen, looked at Tang Tang, and said with a smile. The college entrance examination is coming soon, you just need to control your diet. Don't reduce your food intake too much at once, or your body won't be able to handle it. Studying is also very tiring, and going to the gym is unnecessary. You want to lose weight, not exercise. Fitness consumes sugar, not fat. The more you exercise, the more you eat, and your body will not be able to handle it. If you really want to get some exercise, just walk a few kilometers at night. Don't affect your health. If you really want to get in shape, wait until after the college entrance exam. In fact, girls don't have to go to the gym to get in shape. Yoga and Pilates are good enough. Fang Zhou placed one hand on the table and the other elbow on the table behind him, leaning slightly sideways. His voice was not loud but had a calm and steady tone that made his words more credible. Tang Tang narrowed her eyes. You know so much, that's amazing. By the way, this is the candy my mother insisted on giving me. Tang Tang opened her small bag and looked at Fang Zhou with her big eyes blinking. Huff, huff. Fang Zhou was writing the outline of the last story when he heard sobbing coming from next door. I turned around and saw Tang Tang using a tissue to wipe her nose. The eyes are also red. Woo woo woo. Why did you write the ending of these 2 people like this? It was just a misunderstanding between them, why can't they resolve the misunderstanding and finally get together? Oh tilde 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 tilde. Fang Zhou was also speechless. After seeing the detailed outline she had placed next to it, Tang Tang took it and took a look at it curiously. Unexpectedly. This girl is still such an emotional person. Although it is only a detailed outline of about 1,000 words, it has outlined the main plot and highlights of the story, just like taking you to watch an entire movie in 5 minutes. But Fang Zhou didn't expect it. I haven't even thought of a name for the character yet, but I can still make this guy cry. A synopsis is a synopsis. The article also needs to lay the groundwork and create an atmosphere. Just like this girl could be made to cry. Fang Zhou was happy, and it was stable now. Seeing that the little fat girl's nose and eyes were red, she seemed to have suffered a great injustice. Ark joked. Do you know why the prince and princess in the fairy tale finally lived a happily ever after? Tang Tang's eyes flickered. Shaked his head. Ark. The main reasons are, one is beautiful and the other is very rich. It's just a story. Why are you still being hypocritical? It's not that serious. Everyone naturally yearns for beautiful emotions, but reality is usually accompanied by regrets, which can also make people grow. Only regrets are unforgettable. I'm here to make money, so I'll write whatever appeals to people. From your looks, it looks like the effect is pretty good. It's not shameful to make money. Tang Tang rolled her eyes at Fang Zhou. Put all the papers back on Ark's table. Although she wanted to read a few other stories, she was afraid that she would not be able to control herself and it would affect her mood. But his eyes would occasionally drift towards the piece of paper he had just read. It seems that he is still a little angry. After a while, Tang Tang couldn't help but turn her head. This article is so well written. I didn't expect there would be a writer next to me, it's amazing. Fang Zhou felt a chill. He said quickly. Don't talk about writers. Every circle has its own chain of contempt. Those who write online articles are at the bottom of the contempt chain for writing jobs. Although I made money from online writing in my previous life, I was still looked down upon and was too embarrassed to say that I did this when I went out. Many of my colleagues are like this. Stay at home every day. Have a wife. Others will think you are a gigolo. If you don't have a wife, then you are definitely a parasite, which makes Fang Zhou allergic to the word writer. Tang Tang felt a little strange about Fang Zhou's attitude of discarding her, but she didn't ask any more questions. I thought of what my mother reminded me of. Do you have time tonight? I told my mother about your help at noon, and she said she wanted to invite you to my house for dinner. Looking at the little fat girl with an innocent and expectant look on her face, Fang Zhou could guess it too. This meal was definitely not just a thank you. However, Fang Zhou was open-minded. After thinking about his own arrangements, he nodded and said, "Okay. Tell me the address and I'll go there in the evening. But I need your help with something. Do you still have your books for grade 10 and grade 11? If you do, bring them to me next week. Here I am." Tang Tang's eyes turned into crescent moons when she smiled. It seemed that Fang Zhou asking her for help was also something that made her happy. The two classes went by very quickly. When the teacher announces the end of Get Out of Class, there was a sudden cheer in the class and everyone rushed out of the classroom like trapped beasts out of a cage. After all, many people in this class are just here to get by. Hong Xiaolong came over. "Lao Fang, what are you going to do this weekend? My parents are not at home, and there's no mood to play games at home. How about we go to the internet cafe together?" Noon. Hong Xiaolong already knew that Fang Zhou's parents were divorced. Hong Xiaolong would know about this kind of thing sooner or later, so Fang Zhou mentioned it during the meal, but Hong Xiaolong didn't ask any more questions. "Come over now. I want to pull Fang Zhou to the internet cafe." There is no hope for Hong Xiaolong's grades. The best outcome is to go to a regular college, or find a university that costs money to get a diploma. It's finally the weekend. You will definitely not learn if you study. Tang Tang, who was standing beside her, pricked up her ears and packed her things a lot slower. Chapter 13 Ethical Drama. Arc Road. I have something else to do. I'll find you if you go to the internet cafe later. Don't forget to check your phone. I'll need your car as well. Tang Tang was filled with envy when she heard this and really wanted to be able to participate in their activities and go out with them on weekends. She rarely goes out with friends. After thinking about it, I decided to forget it. These two are both very handsome guys. It felt weird to think about two handsome guys like them being together and someone of my stature following them, not to mention that their relationship hadn't reached that stage yet. At the school gate, a red KN was parked there. Students came out one by one, and Lan Jia, who was sitting in the driver's seat, stared at the school gate. Soon I saw my daughter coming out with two boys. Lan Jia quickly confirmed it. The taller boy walking next to the girl is Fang Zhou, which can be guessed from the direction of her gaze. The boy is handsome and looks quite steady. Seeing it from afar was Lan Jia's first impression of the arc. Out of the school gate, Tang Tang saw her mother's car. She reminded Fang Zhou not to forget to go to her house for dinner in the evening, waved her hand reluctantly and ran towards the KN across the road. Hong Xiaolong's car was also parked not far from the school. Red Mustang, fully imported. But it's second-hand. He was eliminated by his father. Hong Xiaolong wanted to drive a car and his family was not short of money, but Comrade Hong would not let his son spend money recklessly, so he bought him a second-hand car. Hong Xiaolong didn't mind. Just having a means of transportation was enough, he didn't care about the appearance. Still a high school student. No parking is allowed in the school. Hong Xiaolong always parks outside the school. After stepping on the accelerator, the Mustang engine started like a beast, but eventually it slowly drove onto the road. In the KN, after getting in the car, Tang Tang's eyes were still fixed on a departing figure. Lan Jia said helplessly, "That must be the Ark." "Okay." They are still staring even though everyone's gone. "Have you told him about inviting people to dinner? Does he have time?" Tang Tang suddenly realized. "Yes, let's go buy some groceries. Fang Zhou agreed to come to my house for dinner tonight. I forgot to ask him what he likes to eat. This stinky girl. Are you so eager to get involved when nothing has happened yet?" Lan Jia stared at her daughter speechlessly. "Why haven't I seen you so active before? I feel tired even when I ask you to accompany me to buy groceries." Tang Tang's face flushed, but her brain reacted quickly. You were the one who said you wanted to treat them to a meal. If their hospitality is not good, then we are being rude, don't you think? Lan Jie glanced at Tang Tang and found that her bestie's personality was indeed more cheerful than before, and even her brain seemed to be working better. Is this the power of boys? Shaked his head. She has a relatively open-minded personality. No matter if it's a boy or a girl, as long as they have a good personality, she doesn't mind her daughter having more contact with them. She also knows that her daughter is too introverted. Just don't do anything out of the ordinary. But look at how diligent my daughter is. She was a little worried. My daughter is simple-minded and has no complicated thoughts. If she really falls in love, she will be easily hurt. Lan Jie reminded while driving. Ask Fang Zhou what he likes to eat and what he avoids eating. Tang Tang was hesitating whether to chat with Fang Zhou, wondering how to send a message without appearing deliberate or abrupt. Now I finally have a reasonable excuse. Tar da, tapping on the phone. After a while, Tang Tang proudly raised her phone. Fang Zhou said that either break. The young man is quite good, delicate and not pretentious. Lan Jie began to investigate for unknown reasons. The ark returned home. There's no one in the living room. Fang Zhou returned to his bedroom and began to pack his things. Actually, there wasn't much. All the spring and summer clothes were stuffed into the suitcase, along with some of Fang Zhou's favorite books and some miscellaneous items. Things were packed up quickly. Looking at the astronomical telescope in the corner of the room, Fang Zhou narrowed his eyes. I received it 3 years ago. Because I could go to number 3 middle school, my mother Fang Yuru fulfilled my wish and gave me an astronomical telescope. Fang Ark was very happy and gave the telescope a name Explorer. But after that, I never accepted any gifts from my mother again. Even if it's a birthday or something like that, Lao Wang would prepare a sumptuous meal to celebrate. The Ark did not move the Explorer. Pack your suitcase, close it, and zip it up. Fang Qinglin's figure appeared at the door of Fang Zhou's bedroom. She came back earlier than Fang Zhou and stayed in her room to study. She didn't pay much attention to Fang Zhou's return until she heard him packing his things. I saw that almost everything in Fang Zhou's bedroom had been taken away. It's like moving house. Are you going to live outside? Although it is a question. However, Fang Qinglin's tone was firm. If I really live on campus, I can just bring a few sets of clothes to change into. There's no need to move like I'm doing now. I thought about the same scene yesterday around this time. Fang Qinglin felt a little flustered. The fists in his pockets were clenched so tightly that his nails were digging into his flesh. This feeling of family breakdown made Fang Qinglin feel suffocated, and reminded her of the time when she lived in an orphanage as a child. That feeling of being in a state of constant anxiety. Although she is older now, she still feels panic every time she thinks about it. What on earth is going on? Mom won't tell. I called my dad and he wouldn't tell me. Do you know why my parents want to divorce and why they don't say anything? Fang Qinglin's pretty face was full of nervousness and anxiety. She did not have the calmness and dignity that she had when she was in school. Fang Zhou stood up the suitcase and pulled out the handle. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "You can ask Fang and Mom about specific matters. It's hard for outsiders to talk about that kind of thing, but there is one thing I can tell you. Do you know why Lao Wang left so decisively? It's because Lao Wang and I have no blood relationship." Fang Zhou smiled sneerfully. Fang Qinglin was confused. Although still a student. However, this knowledge point is available in biology class, and Fang Qinglin has always had good grades. From Fang Zhou's words, Fang Qinglin's mind had automatically constructed an ethical drama, and his expression became increasingly ugly. I thought of my mother whom I respected and idolized. Fang Qinglin couldn't believe it. Impossible, how could this happen? Seeing Fang Qinglin's distraught look, Fang Zhou was also a little confused. This matter has nothing to do with you, right? Chapter 14 Leaving Home. Fang Zhou guessed that Fang Qinglin was thinking in the wrong direction. He reached out and tapped Fang Qinglin on the forehead, saying speechlessly, "Don't be a brain stuffer. Things are not what you think. In fact, Lao Wang knew everything about that matter from the beginning, and there is something else going on now. You can ask Mom for details." Fang Zhou didn't want to say much. Fang Qinglin is 1.67 meters tall, which is considered above average among girls, but she is nearly 20 centimeters shorter than Fang Zhou. She was hit on the head without any warning and jumped back subconsciously. He stared at Fang Zhou with wary eyes. I saw this guy walking out with his suitcase as if nothing had happened. Fang Qinglin said faintly. I won't tell mom about you living off campus unless you make it clear with her yourself. Ark. Sister. I want to discuss something with you. Look, you've always wanted to be a strong woman, right? From now on, I won't take a penny from Yunxi Group. I'll give it all to you, just in time for you to realize your ambitions. The condition is that you don't interfere in my business. What do you think? You don't believe it. I can write you a letter of guarantee right now. Ark patiently guides people. He knows. Fang Yuru is a person with a strong desire for control. If my mother knew that I didn't live on campus but lived outside, she would definitely not agree. She is not someone who compromises easily. Although you can force it, there is no need to. But. Ark looked up. But what he saw was a pair of stubborn almond-shaped eyes staring at him with tears in their eyes. Ark. I'll say it again. I am very grateful to my parents for adopting me and for raising me. I will repay them in the future and respect them well with my own abilities and methods. You don't have to worry. I won't steal the Fang family's property. Fang Zhou held his forehead with his hand. No wonder he felt these words were familiar. He remembered that he had said something similar 3 years ago, but in a sarcastic tone. Think about Fang Qinglin's personality and his current age. You definitely can't feel your own sincerity. Ark muttered. Little girl, how can you not take a joke? Too lazy to explain. Ark can only change its way. I went out to study hard. No matter what, mom definitely hopes that I can get into a good university. You listen to mom so much, so you must also want mom to be happy. How about we make a bet? Since the second mock exam is coming up, I'm moving out. I'm sure I can surpass you in one of the subjects in this second mock exam. If you can't do it, you can always tell mom about it. If you do, you don't have to mention it anymore. How? MD, there was no fire in the simulated fire, and no earthquake in the simulated earthquake. How can a simulated exam be like a real exam? But Ark is still a bit impressive. If you compare all subjects, you will only end up with trouble. This girl has never let anyone else get the first place in her 3 years of high school. Fang Qinglin pursed his lips. Look at it intently. It feels like the person in front of me has become a different person. Although his words are still irritating sometimes, there is usually a difference between the hedgehog before the deterioration. At least he didn't directly choke me just now. Fang Zhou also looked at Fang Qinglin. Although Fang Qinglin is excellent in all aspects, she is decisive in doing things outside and appears to be confident and steady. But recalling the time I spent with her over the past few years, Ark knew it very well. This little girl is actually very sensitive and lacks confidence, and she smiles less and less. Suddenly, Fang Zhou remembered the time when he was a child and this little girl followed him every day, calling him Wugwa and Gwugwa. It seems that her change started with the change in her previous incarnation's attitude. Seeing Fang Qinglin didn't say anything, Ark finalized. That's settled. I walked to the door and looked back at my room, just in time to see the Explorer placed in the corner. It was previously regarded as a treasure. Now it seems like nothing more than a joke. Taking a long breath, Fang Zhou put the key on the cabinet, pushed the door open, and left with the suitcase. Fang Qinglin panicked and ran to the door and shouted. What are you doing with your keys? The back view that was somewhat similar to yesterday's made Fang Qinglin feel infinite fear. Fang Zhou waved his hand and said, I'm afraid of losing it. If I come back and knock on the door, will you still not open it? The door closed slowly. Fang Qinglin walked to the window and stood there for a long time as he watched Fang Zhou pulling his suitcase towards the gate of the community. It wasn't until his legs became numb that he took out his cell phone. Mom, do you have to work overtime today? Yunxi Group. When Fang Yuru received a call from Fang Qinglin, she was shocked to realize that it was already evening. He rubbed his aching neck. Apologies said. Qinglin, I have to work overtime today, so I guess I'll be back late. Order takeout tonight, or ask your brother to cook for you. If that doesn't work, you two can just go out to eat. Mom, Fang Zhou, he moved out. Fang Yuru's voice suddenly stopped. After a while, he said. Oh. Then you can take care of your dinner today. The housekeeper my mom hired won't be here until tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about meals in the future. Fang Qinglin had a lot to say, and the call wasn't about dinner. Finally, he just said, "Then you go ahead and do your work, take care of yourself, and eat well." After hanging up the phone, Fang Qinglin had a complicated expression. Outside the Twin Lakes courtyard, the red Mustang squeaked to a stop by the roadside. Hong Xiaolong got out of the car and was surprised to see Fang Zhou carrying a huge suitcase. Then he was shocked again, waiting for the smoke thrown by Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou picked up the suitcase, opened the car door and threw it into the back seat, then said unhappily, "You are so addicted to games that you kept me waiting for so long. Let's go to the west side of the school. I'm moving out." Hong Xiaolong was silent. At noon, Fang Zhou said that his parents were divorced, and Hong Xiaolong was not too surprised. Some legends were no secret among the upper classes, and the news of the Fang family's marriage into the family was not a secret either. Hong Xiaolong had also heard his elders mention it occasionally. As for the son-in-law who lives with the wife's wife, there are usually no good results. However, Fang Zhou decided to move out and live alone. Hong Xiaolong didn't expect this. But still no further questions. While driving, Hong Xiaolong said with a smile, "It's really enviable. It's so comfortable to live alone. I can go home whenever I want and smoke whenever I want. It wasn't easy for you to come out and play before. Celebrate. I'll take you to Tsinghua tonight. You haven't been to a bar yet. It's a quiet bar. The girls there are of high quality and not easy to get. But with your looks, there are many sisters who want to comfort you. Don't look for my sister. We have to obey the law." Fang Zhou has just reached adulthood. Hong Xiaolong's tone was clearly a little sour. He had been to the bar a few times before, but given his appearance, the people who came up to him were all older sisters and aunts. His delicate face doesn't seem to attract young girls very much, and he can't be as omnipotent as Fang Zhou. Ark had no interest in this. "I have something else to do later. Tang Tang said her mother wants to treat me to a meal." Hong Xiaolong was overjoyed. That's a good feeling. Actually, Tang Tang is pretty good too. Although her appearance and figure are not good, she has a good temper. If I marry her, she will obey you in everything. This guy smiles like a duck. Fang Zhou looked at him like a fool. Idiot. Chapter 15 Mixed Blood Girl. The car soon arrived in front of a separate two-story building. The surrounding is quiet, the house is 2 stories high, and the downstairs house has a yard. Fang Zhou just came here after school and rented it. 1 bedroom downstairs. The rent is 800 a month. The landlord is a kind old lady who lives on the 2nd floor. The Ark's room is entered from the courtyard on the 1st floor. There are stairs in the courtyard that lead to the 2nd floor, or you can go directly to the 2nd floor from the back. The furniture in the room is ready-made. Still new. After putting down the Ark, Hong Xiaolong rushed back to the internet cafe where he was still playing the game. Fang Zhou walked into the room carrying a suitcase. The room was clean and looked like it had been cleaned. Fang Zhou took out the things and put them in the room, then strolled into the yard. Various potted plants are placed along the corners of the yard. Now is the time when spring flowers are blooming. These green plants are full of vitality, adding a bit of liveliness to the yard. Click. Fang Zhou was squatting in front of a pot of pine. A palm-sized Barbie doll fell at Fang Zhou's feet, with its arms flying off. Ark looked up. I saw a delicate little face flash by from the upstairs window. After a while, Grandma Zhou came down with a little girl of about 4 or 5 years old and said embarrassedly, "Xiaofang, I'm sorry. Yeye was playing by the window just now and something dropped. I hope it didn't hit you." "Yeye?" Fang Zhou looked at the little girl, a little surprised. She has dark brown, slightly curly hair that is loose, blue-green pupils, fair skin, and very delicate facial features that are obvious to a Western girl. Like a porcelain doll. Is this a mixed-race girl? The little girl huddled behind Grandma Zhou, holding onto the corner of her clothes. The big eyes looked at the Ark timidly. Fang Zhou smiled and said, "It's all right. My sister's name is Yeye." "What a nice name. Does it mean moon?" "It's a really nice name." It can be seen that this girl is very timid. Maybe even a little autistic. Fang Ark spoke. After a few pleasantries with a smile, the little girl's expression seemed much more relaxed. An old lady with white hair and a mixed-race girl living in such a yard is obviously a person with a story. Fang Zhou doesn't like to pry into other people's privacy. Pick up Barbie. He put the fallen arm back on and handed it to Yaya. It's fixed. Be careful. Yaya shuddered. When she saw that it was her doll, she glanced at Grandma Zhou next to her, then carefully reached out and took the doll. The milk voice said, "Thank you, brother. Look. This little girl is so cute, more likable than Qinglin. Those star-like eyes and chubby little face make people want to pinch them." After chatting for a while, Grandma Zhou took the little girl upstairs. You can see it. Even to the yard downstairs. All of these would make the little girl named Yaya feel a little uneasy. By this time it was already dark. Fang Zhou locked the door to the yard and walked towards the bus stop. Tang family residence. Tang Jianwang returned home after get off work. As soon as I entered the door, I smelled the fragrance coming from the kitchen and saw my wife and daughter busy in the kitchen. At this time, for dishes were already on the table and someone was still busy. Lan Jiyar brought out the dishes. Tang Jianwang was happy. Isn't today a good day? I've prepared so many delicious dishes. I'm in for a treat tonight. Honey, can I take advantage of my daughter and have a drink tonight? Outside, Tang Jianwang is Mr. Tang, who is worth billions. Back home, the family status is evident. Lan Jiyar glanced at Tang Jianwang, then looked at Tang Tang, who came out and said, "You'll have to ask Tang Tang." Tang Tang sniffed and said, "Drink, drink. It's not because of me, but because of the ark." Ark? Tang Jianwang was a little confused. Lan Jiyar was also speechless. For the entire afternoon, this girl couldn't stop talking about Fang Zhou, and her ears were getting calluses. My daughter praised that guy to the point of praising him like a flower. He glanced at Tang Jianwang and said, "Tang Tang classmate. I helped Tang Tang at school, so I asked Tang Tang to invite him to my house for dinner." Tang Jianwang immediately asked vigilantly, "Boy or girl?" Tang Tang was checking the dishes on the table and didn't notice that her father's expression had changed. Said casually, "A man, my desk mate. I told you about him at home before." Tang Jianwang's mood suddenly became bad. When his daughter wasn't paying attention, Tang Jianwang pulled Lan Jiyar to the kitchen and asked in a low voice, "What's going on? Why did she invite her classmate to her house for dinner? He's a boy at that. I'm telling you, boys and girls of this age are most likely to have thoughts, so you have to be careful." Lan Jiyar rolled her eyes at her husband. "It's just a dinner for classmates, why are you so nervous?" Tang Jianwang is a daughter slave. Somewhat anxiously said, "How can I not be nervous? Our daughters don't know anything and are most easily deceived. There are so many bad boys out there, one of them might just show up from nowhere and deceive my daughter. As a mother, why don't you stop them and invite them to dinner?" Lan Jiyar glared. "Mr. Tang, what do you mean by that? That's your daughter, isn't she my daughter? Don't I care about her? Do you have any conscience when you say that?" Tang Jianwang immediately gave in. Lan Jiyar also understands her husband's mentality. He glanced at his daughter in the living room and told Tang Jianwang what happened at school. Tang Jianwang's face darkened and his aura changed. There is such a thing. Doesn't the school care about things like this? Looks like I need to talk to Lao Li. The old Li mentioned by Tang Jianwang is the head of the Education Bureau, and the two have a good relationship. Lan Jiyar pushed Tang Jianwang. Unhappy. Will it be okay if we make a big show of it? I talked to Tang Tang's class teacher and she said she would pay more attention to these things in the future. She hadn't noticed them before. I said that you also have an unshirkable responsibility in this matter. Watch her social life. She doesn't even know how to interact with people. If she interacted with others more and had a more cheerful personality, this wouldn't have happened. This time it's all thanks to Fang Zhou. Wait for someone to come. If you give someone a cold shoulder, I'll show you how I'll deal with you. Tang Jianwang felt a little guilty. As for the truth, he naturally understands it. But when it comes to things related to his daughter, he can't help but be on guard. Being reprimanded. I could only say in a low voice, "Then I must thank them." Having said that, Tang Jianwang still felt a little suffocated in his heart, as if he was a father-in-law meeting his son-in-law for the first time and wanted to beat him to death with a hammer. Lan Jia comforts. Okay. Are you going to take care of her for the rest of her life? She's about to go to college, are you going to accompany her to college? Tang Jianwang said stubbornly. What's wrong with accompanying my students? Wherever she goes to college, I will buy a house near their school. When she goes to that city in the future, I will buy a house nearby. I can afford to raise it for a lifetime. Chapter 16. The little cotton padded jacket is leaking. Lan Jia sneered. That's all. When Tang Tang gets married and has children, she will have to take care of the children and you, an old thing. If you don't mind, you should also consider Tang Tang. Just at this moment, Tang Tang pushed the door and entered the kitchen. What are you guys whispering about here? Lan Jia glanced at Tang Jianwang, who looked embarrassed. Well, I heard from you that your classmates are here, so I just want to ask about your classmates' situation. Tang Tang slapped her forehead. I was so busy that I forgot. I don't know where he is. I'll call and ask. Tang Jiahuang quickly pulled him back. Forget it, forget it. Maybe he was delayed on their way. He might not come yet. By the way, I heard from your mom that a classmate bullied you at home school, and Fang Zhou helped you beat him up. Although we are also grateful to this classmate of yours. But fighting in school is not a good habit. Such people have bad tempers. Tang Tang waved her hand. Fang Zhou is not that kind of person. He never fought in school before, and this time it was because of me. He had very good grades in junior high school and was always among the top students. Maybe something happened when I was in high school. That's right. He can also write articles. I read it. The article he wrote is very interesting. Hearing this, Tang Jianwang and Lan Jia looked at each other. Tang Jianwang showed a proud look. Look. You've been exposed, and you're still writing an article. I've heard you mention the students with good grades in your class, but I've never heard of this name called Fang Zhou. This method is deceptive, trying to attract your attention. My daughter. You have to be vigilant. Lan Jia thought of something else. No wonder I still feel this name is a bit strange. This Fang Zhou is your classmate from junior high school, the one from the Fang family. His mother's name is Fang Yuru, right? I have met Fang Yuru a few times, but I'm not very familiar with her. I didn't expect to be your deskmate again. When they were in junior high school, Fang Zhou and Tang Tang were both in a private middle school and were in the same class. Lan Jia was a little strange. I remember that the Fang family has an adopted daughter who seems to have good grades. Fang Qinglin, who has always been ranked first in your grade, could she be Fang Zhou's sister? After connecting the dots, Lan Jia also felt a little surprised. Tang Tang's learning talent is average. Number 3 middle school. I got in through connections. That arc isn't that great now though. However, his grades were quite good in junior high school, and he was admitted to number 3 middle school based on his grades. Mention this. Tang Tang had a proud expression on her face. Fang Zhou was really good in junior high school. Not only did he have good grades, he was also good at basketball. He was the idol of many female classmates. By the way, when Fang Zhou comes later, don't ask him about his family affairs. Hesitated for a moment. In order to avoid letting the cat out of the bag later, Tang Tang told her parents about Fang Zhou's family affairs. Prevent them from asking embarrassing questions later. Lan Jia looked surprised. The Fang family is also well known in Nanwu City. Moreover, many people had secretly suspected the matter of the son-in-law coming to the Fang family, and no one expected that it would eventually come to this. Imagine encountering something like this. It must be hard to feel good. The sentimental Lan Jia suddenly felt more distressed for her daughter's classmate who had not arrived yet. At this time, the doorbell rang in the house. Before Lan Jia and Tang Jianwang could say anything, Tang Tang had already rushed out of the house and ran towards the gate. Its body flickered like a fat butterfly. The couple looked at each other helplessly. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt a little nervous. It really felt like my son-in-law was visiting me for the first time. The two of them also walked to the door together. At the gate of the courtyard, Tang Tang brought Fang Zhou, who was carrying some fruits. Dad, Mom, this is my deskmate Fang Zhou. Fang Zhou, these are my parents. You were so open and confident just now. At this time, Tang Tang suddenly felt a little shy and her face felt hot. She also suddenly realized that this was a bit like meeting her parents. We are all friends and classmates. It's nothing. Tang Tang secretly cheered herself up. Fang Zhou is quite free and easy. I really bought some fruit and brought it over. It seemed inappropriate to come empty-handed when visiting for the first time, but he would not pretend to be rich by bringing expensive gifts. They are still students. Just be polite. If you insist on pretending to be a mature and steady person in society and bring tens of thousands of dollars worth of liquor and other things, you are just an idiot. You made your own money. We still need to be polite, Fang Ark greeted. Hello, uncle and auntie, I am Tang Tang's classmate Fang Zhou, sorry to bother you today. Knowing Fang Zhou's family situation and seeing that he had simply brought some fruits when he came to their house, Tang Jinwang's face looked better. He also hates people who are very scheming at a young age. Just seeing Fang Zhou's face. Comrade Lao Tang's inner alarm bells rang again. This face is very dangerous. Lan Jie greeted them with a smile and asked them all to come into their house. Just treat him as an ordinary classmate of my daughter. At the dinner table, Tang Jinwang took out a bottle of Maotai and shook it towards Fang Zhou. Have some. To the surprise of the family of three, Fang Zhou actually nodded and said, then drink with uncle. Good job. They thought Fang Zhou would be reserved, but they didn't expect that he didn't consider himself an outsider at all. Fang Zhou hasn't had a drink for a while, mainly because he has had too many things to do these past 2 days. In his previous life, he used to smoke while typing, and he liked to drink when he lacked inspiration. He was used to it. When Comrade Lao Tang greeted him, he did not refuse. Although it was the first time they met, Fang Zhou could see that Tang Tang's father had some opinions about him. This is understandable. After all, Fang Zhou is also an old man at heart. If I had a daughter this old, I would definitely hate anyone who might kidnap my little girl. But Fang Zhou felt at peace. Although he knew that as long as Tang Tang lost weight, her appearance would definitely shock many people. But at least he hasn't set his mind on this girl yet. I helped by chance before. People should be thankful. So I came here by myself. Looking back on his life, Fang Zhou never thought of being an honest person and doing whatever makes him happy. Seeing Fang Zhou's reaction, Tang Jinwang's face, Lan Jie's guess was correct. Tang Tang was extremely envious when she saw Fang Zhou talking calmly with his parents, and not shying away from saying he wanted to drink with his dad. As a social phobia expert, he even stuttered when greeting his female classmates' parents. I sincerely admire those who suffer from the late stage of social compulsion. Chapter 17 Chen Jing's thoughts. Old Tang's alcohol tolerance is average, and he felt a little dizzy after 2 glasses of wine. He was originally planning to expose Fang Zhou's little trick, and patted Fang Zhou on the shoulder under the influence of alcohol. Xiaofang, is it okay for me to call you that? I heard from Tang Tang that you can also write articles. It seems that you are very good at writing. Lan Jie pulled Tang Jinwang and signaled him not to talk nonsense to avoid being embarrassed later. Just through brief contact. The elegant feeling of orchid. Among his peers, Fang Zhou is definitely an outstanding boy. He has a calm and steady temperament, which is quite different from some previous rumors. He glanced at his daughter who was looking at him eagerly. Lan Jie said kindly, Fang Zhou, you know that Tang Tang is just so-so in other subjects, but she lags behind in Chinese, and it's always hard for her to write essays. I heard from Tang Tang that you have great insights into writing. Auntie wants to ask you for help. Give this girl some pointers when you have the chance in the future. Blue card. It is a coffee shop located in the middle of the office buildings in Nanwu Park, and its decoration exudes a petty bourgeois style. Backed by so many office buildings. Although it's past 8 o'clock, it still attracts many people who have just got off work or who like this kind of environment. Inside the cafe, there were several men in suits and ties, with briefcases beside them and a cup of coffee in their hands. Looks like an elite. However, his eyes would drift to a corner not far away from time to time. In the corner, Fang Yuru and Chen Jing sat opposite each other. Fang Yuru picked up the coffee and took a sip, then looked out the window with a dazed look in her eyes. The two had just gotten off work. There's been a lot going on lately. Although Fang Yuru is a strong woman, she also wants to find someone to talk to when she encounters troubles. So I came over and attract male creatures around. It is Fang Yuru's elegant yet aloof temperament. Chen Jing sat opposite her, wearing a light blue Dior short-sleeved suit, with her hair tied into a simple ponytail at the back of her head, looking very capable. I didn't expect you guys to get divorced all of a sudden. Sister-in-law is obviously a good person. Jiu Jia, good at cooking, can write articles and has published books. He has a gentle personality. It complements your personality perfectly. After get off work, the two of them called each other friends. Fang Yuru turned her head and glanced at Chen Jing, shaking her head slightly. Without love, there is naturally no basis for living together, and divorce is inevitable sooner or later. Although we are friends. But there are some things Chen Jing doesn't know. Chen Jing understood that every family has its own problems, so she didn't try to persuade them and just looked down at the cup in front of her. Seems to recall something. Hesitantly said. Whatever. We need to pay attention to Xiao Ju and Qing Lin's feelings. When a family breaks down, children are the most helpless and sad, and they are also the most hurt. Chen Jing's eyes were vague. Fang Yuru knew about Chen Jing's family situation and nodded slightly. I couldn't help but frown. Qing Lin is fine. He has been mature since he was a child. It's just that Xiao Ju is a little willful. He is a boy, and he is already an adult. There are some things he must take responsibility for, and he cannot just keep evading them. He doesn't understand these principles yet. Maybe he can be more mature this time. Chen Jing smiled bitterly. Fang Yuru's experience is different from hers, and some things don't make sense. Change the topic and mention the company. Sci-Hi Group is still determined to get our breeding base project handed over to them, and now they are setting restrictions on us everywhere. The same goes for Chen Changxing. There were a lot of rumors about my brother-in-law in the company, and it was him who spread them. If he knew that you and your brother-in-law were getting divorced, he would definitely start making trouble again. You have to be careful about this. Many people in the company know about it. Although Mr. Fang has a family, Mr. Chen has peculiar feelings towards President Fang and is always courteous to him. 5 years ago, Yunxi Group wants to expand its scale. At that time, Yunxi Group was valued at 400 million yuan. In order to raise 100 million yuan for development, it distributed 20% of its equity. Sci-Hi Group invested 50 million yuan to hold 10% of the shares. The 100 million yuan in financing has brought convenience to the company's rapid development. However, it also brings trouble. With the entry of capital from several parties, some things are no longer decided by the Fang family alone. It was fine in the beginning when we were making money, but now that Yunxi's development has entered a bottleneck period, some people have other ideas. Chen Changxing is a director of the group. He is also the representative of Sci-Hi Group in Yunxi. Recently, he has been often against Fang Yuru and has vetoed many decisions, which gives Fang Yuru a headache. After all, the Sci-Hi Group is behind him. And Sci-Hi Group. It is a long-established real estate company in Nanwu City with complicated relationships. Thinking of this, Fang Yuru couldn't help but frown. He thought and said, although Sci-Hi Group is our shareholder, the size of Yunxi is not much smaller than Sci-Hi now. We don't have to rely on them as before. Chen Changxing is just a director they sent. Yunxi's development strategy does not need anyone else's advice. It's time to get off work, so let's not talk about these things. Don't just focus on the company's affairs, but worry about your own personal situation. Mentioned this is. Fang Yuru seemed more interested. I heard that you met a good guy during your training at the business school this time. If it's appropriate, we can consider living together. We are not young anymore. Chen Jing is 4 years younger than Fang Yuru. At this age, and having reached this level, we rarely talk about love things anymore. It mainly depends on whether it is suitable or not. A hint of unnaturalness flashed across Chen Jing's face. He picked up the coffee and took a sip. We've only just met for a short time, so we need to get to know each other better. Fang Yuru smiled and said, I've dealt with Manager Zhu before, so there's nothing to investigate. If you feel like it's okay, let's get married. Your mother asked me to persuade you to find someone to marry as soon as possible a while ago. Look at Chen Jing twisting her body in the chair. Fang Yuru smiled and didn't mention it again. He stood up and said, It's getting late, Qinglin is still at home, I'm going back first. Chen Jing also stood up quickly. I send you. Fang Yuru waved her hand and said. It's not like I'm drinking. I'll drive myself back. You should go home early too. Outside the cafe. Chen Jing waved her hand and watched Fang Yuru's car leave. I looked back into the cafe and saw several pairs of eyes following the direction of the car. Chen Jing sighed slightly. Tang family. Writing is difficult, but it is also very simple if you want to say it is simple. It's important to make an outline before you start writing. Fang Zhou's face turned slightly red. The three people next to him were staring at him with different looks. Fang Zhou smiled at Tang Tang and said. That's too abstract. Then try it out on a topic and you'll know. Essay topic, an unforgettable event. Let's take what happened today as an example. Tang Tang, if you were to describe this event from your perspective, how would you write about it? Chapter 18 Mother and Daughter Talk. Fang Ark spoke. Lan Jia and Tang Jianhuang both became interested. Originally, they were not very interested in this topic and did not understand it, but since it was related to their daughter's studies, they listened with interest. Ark said to give an example. This principle is easy to understand. I turned to look at my daughter, wanting to see her reaction. Several eyes were focused on her. Tang Tang was obviously a little nervous. After thinking for a while, she said. If it were me, I'll probably start with my own personality, explaining my personality and how I get along with others at school. Fang Zhou made a stop gesture. He said. That won't work. If it's really written like that. After explaining these things, I think half of the book will be over. When you realize it, you panic and start to quickly describe what happened, like a diary. It can't highlight the key points, so it's not an unforgettable event, and naturally won't get a high score. That's what I just said, the importance of making an outline. You know. What should we write in an 800-word essay? The structural analysis of this matter is mainly based on the contradictions that occurred. Fang Zhou talked freely. He has some say in this regard. At least I had written novels of tens of millions of words in my previous life, and they were quite successful and had been tested by the market. Moreover, in his previous life, the platform he published on emphasized a fast pace. This is more obvious when writing an essay of several hundred words. The above is a breakdown of the main and secondary points of the various parts of this matter. But there is one important point. 3 views. Even if it's to uphold justice, as students, we must make our attitude clear. Hitting people is wrong and we can't promote violence. It's about getting the tone right. Young teacher. See no points deducted for this. With this attitude, if you meet a teacher with more traditional ideas, they won't deduct points for your incorrect tone. There are also some skills in writing. Memorize some famous quotes. If you're not confident, you can recite some less common ones. You can use it in your essays anytime to add some style. If you can't remember who said it, just say it was said by Mr. Lu Xun. If it's in ancient Chinese, it's said by Confucius. The teacher's knowledge is not that broad, it's impossible for him to know everything. The time for grading was so tight that he saw something he didn't know and had no time to verify the sentence. Tang Tang raised her hand as if she was attending a cram school. Serious face after being called out. Teacher. What if the examiner happens to know what I quoted and who said it? Ark. Fine. The teacher will think you are humorous. Lan Jia. Tang Jianhuang? Clatter. The living room light was turned on. A figure woke up from the sofa. Mom, you're back. Fang Yuru then realized that her daughter was curled up on the sofa, and hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Why are you sleeping on the sofa? Are you feeling unwell? Fang Yuru was relieved when she was sure that Fang Qinglin was just sleeping and his hands and feet were numb. She said angrily. Girl, if you're tired, go to bed. Why are you sleeping on the couch? Fang Qinglin moved his body, feeling his mother's care and concern, and his heart felt warm. Thinking about the purpose of waiting for my mother here, I didn't know how to ask for a moment. Fang Yuru poured a glass of water. Sitting on the sofa next to him, he asked. Have you had dinner? Fang Qinglin nodded and said in a low voice. Brother moved away. Fang Yuru was stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, Oh. Fang Qinglin paused. Seeing that her mother didn't even go to Fang Zhou's room to check on him, she suddenly understood why Fang Zhou wanted to move out. "Mom, can we talk?" Fang Yuru paused. Fang Qinglin rarely spoke to him so formally. When she asked this, Fang Yuru had roughly guessed what Fang Qinglin was going to ask. Fang Yuru took a breath and said, "I'm going to change my clothes first." Fang Yuru changed into her nightgown and came out of the bedroom. Seeing her daughter still sitting in the living room, Fang Yuru sighed inwardly and sat down on the sofa again. At this moment, a trace of unnaturalness flashed across her face. Fang Qinglin didn't look at his mother. Instead, he said, "Mom, can you tell me what happened?" Seeing Fang Yuru didn't say anything, Fang Qinglin continued. "I am also a member of the family. You and Dad divorced suddenly, and Fang Zhou moved out. Seeing the family like this, I feel very uncomfortable. At least, I should know what's going on." It was rare for Fang Qinglin to show his persistence in front of Fang Yuru. Fang Yuru knows the girl's personality. Eyes drifted out the window. Slowly said, "Let me tell you a story. I was still in college at that time. I was young and blind to love. I would pursue anything I thought was worth it." Fang Yuru told the story slowly. Fang Qinglin listened quietly without saying anything, but the expression on his face kept changing as Fang Yuru continued to talk. Fang Yuru's voice feels so unreal. "Li Dong came to see me a while ago. Leukemia. I'm going back to China to find a bone marrow match to save my life. I didn't want to bother with it at first, but I felt a little relieved in my heart. I felt that this was retribution and that people like this should die. But he is Fang Zhou's biological father after all. The blood relationship cannot be severed. You know your brother's character. I didn't know about this before. It must be a big blow to him to suddenly know about it, and he will not agree to it. Even if I don't want to. We also need to consider the future of the Ark. Li Dong will definitely make a fuss if he doesn't save his own father. If the news gets out, Fang Zhou will definitely be criticized. No matter what the reason is, no matter whether my biological father is dead or alive, it is a stain. I'll hide it from you and him." "I thought so. I'll tell him after the college entrance exam is over." "But Wang, your dad knows about it, and Fang Zhou also heard about it. That's probably what happened. There was no affection between you and your father. After something like this happened, it's impossible to act like nothing happened, so I decided to divorce." Fang Qinglin felt his throat tighten. He bowed his head and said, "What about Dad? From beginning to end, he was the one who gave." Fang Yuru was silent for a while. Slowly said, "Gratitude is not an emotion. When you meet someone in the future, you'll understand that you can't force feelings." Fang Qinglin didn't want to ask questions that would embarrass his mother. "But I finally understand. Why do they sleep in separate rooms all these years even though they are husband and wife? Their mother also doesn't allow them to mention this to anyone else. But there is one thing Fang Qinglin still doesn't understand. What about my brother? Why did you stop caring about him since high school?" This is also what Fang Qinglin didn't understand. Fang Yuru breathed a sigh of relief, and her tone was obviously relaxed. "What nonsense are you talking about? He is my flesh and blood. How can I not care about him? But boys need to be independent and not procrastinate. We need to take on more responsibility. And you know it. The company has been developing rapidly in recent years, and I have to worry about everything. I really don't have much time to take care of the family. I hope Qinglin can understand." Chapter 19, The Warm Man Behind the Dog. Hear this explanation. Fang Qinglin frowned subconsciously. But she kept her head down, so Fang Yuru didn't notice. Fang Qinglin raised his head. That Li Dong must have been a famous figure during his college years, and he was a bad guy, right? Fang Yuru was startled and her eyes subconsciously avoided. Fang Qinglin grinned. Picking up the cup of water in front of him, he continued. "I think my brother looks more and more like Li Dong." As if she understood what her daughter meant, Fang Yuru's face showed a trace of panic, and she looked at her daughter somewhat at a loss. Fang Qinglin smiled and didn't continue. He stood up and said. The cousin sighed, took out an internet card and threw it to the front desk, then said to the boy. "Remember, you are born in the year of the horse. Go in." Fang Zhou almost laughed out loud. "Cousin. Hong Xiaolong's cousin is Jin Daong. He is a distant cousin from Hong Xiaolong's mother's side, and is 5 generations away from the ancestors. Jin Daong knew that a distant cousin of his had a well-off family, so he used some connections and went to Nanwu City to live with his cousin. The person himself. Although there is no culture. However, I have a clear idea of my own positioning and don't have any unrealistic ideas. Even if I can become a security guard or a warehouse manager, it will be fine. Lao Hong didn't care. Hong Xiaolong's mother wanted to leave a good relationship. Jin Daong was not placed in the shipping company. A few years ago, internet cafes were booming, so he paid to set up an internet cafe and let Jin Daong manage it. The work is easy, the hours are flexible, and you can get dividends. I can make 3 to 500,000 a year. It's much better than being at home, and Jin Daong is satisfied. This guy is very capable. He knows that he is definitely not qualified to be his cousin's father-in-law, so he is very enthusiastic towards his cousin and cousin. He always sends some dry goods from his hometown to them during the holidays. The internet cafe reserved a special room for Hong Xiaolong. For computers. Normally, no one will be allowed in here even if the other machines are full. Every time Hong Xiaolong came, the network administrator girl would bring him drinks and cigarettes from time to time, and would order meals for him when the time came. She was very attentive. Although for machines, there are not many opportunities for Hong Xiaolong to bring people here. Fang Zhou came here occasionally, and Jin Daong kept it in mind. Even if Fang Zhou came over, Jin Daong, who was almost 30 years old, would still call Fang Brother Fang. Fang Zhou entered the box. Hong Xiaolong was playing games with headphones on. At this time, he was free, so he took off his headphones and looked at Fang Zhou with a wink. How about meeting the father-in-law and mother-in-law? This guy couldn't help but make a joke. But this is just a joke. Hong Xiaolong himself knew that the Tang family was not simple. Both the Hong family and the Fang family are good. But whether in terms of financial resources or influence in Nanwu City, the Fang family and the Hong family combined cannot compare to the Tang family. In fact, Tang is the little princess with the richest family background in number 3 middle school. A few words of greeting. Seeing that Fang Zhou had no intention of playing games, Hong Xiaolong put on his headphones and continued to fight. Fang Zhou turned on a computer and started looking up information. Mainly read online articles. My predecessor was not interested in this, so there are not many archives about these things in my memory. Ark searched and was stunned. Not much is known about its predecessor. It turns out that it's not that my predecessor was ignorant, but that in this world, the development of online literature is really in a barbaric era. There are already online novels on the internet, but they are mainly the Western fantasy era with Lucifer and Gabriel as the mainstream. There is not even any time travel. Fang Zhou searched for the keyword travel through time. All that can be found as some discussions in forums about what one would do if they were to travel back in time to ancient times. This is a good thing. See the situation clearly. Fang Zhou thought about changing his strategy. Previously, I had planned to go the traditional route of submitting articles to literary magazines, because I didn't know much about this world, and most of the things students usually come into contact with are physical books, novels, and magazines. In this era of online literature, art cannot miss this blue ocean. After checking the situation on the internet, fork off the page. Open a new document. Fang Zhou took out the outline he had made earlier, flipped through it, selected 2 pages, read them carefully, closed his eyes and thought, going over the plot in his mind. Start typing. The outline has been prepared before. Now that I have gone through the entire story in my mind, I can write much faster. I don't know if it's because of time travel. The arc is like a tentacle monster. He started working at 10 o'clock and finished a 20,000-word article just after midnight, reaching an astonishing speed of 10,000 words per hour. With this hand speed, he deserves this job. Flexed his wrist. Fang Zhou couldn't help but mutter to himself. In my previous life, when my thoughts were flowing smoothly, my typing speed was no more than 5,000 words per hour. It was just past 12 o'clock. Just now, when Fang Zhou was typing away, Hong Xiaolong came over and typed, asked a few questions casually, and after knowing the situation, he gave Fang Zhou a thumbs up. This is not something that interests him. He asked the network administrator downstairs to make a cup of coffee and bring it up to Fang Zhou, and then he left him alone. Fang Zhou was revising the article while drinking coffee. Half an hour. Finish one article. Ark started working on the second article. That was the article whose outline Tang Tang had read before. The speed was still very fast. The plan was still 20,000 words. It was almost 3 o'clock and the article was about to end, but Fang Zhou's typing speed gradually slowed down. Until the end. Fang Zhou stopped typing on the keyboard. He leaned back on the chair, staring at the ceiling in a daze, and a pair of tears-filled eyes appeared in his mind. Damn it, I'm going to be a scumbag. How can I be soft-hearted because of a little girl's tears? The warm man is behind the dog. Chapter 20 The Best Woman. Fang Zhou constantly used Lao Wang's deeds to motivate himself and cleanse his soul. But in the end, staring at the document on the computer desktop, he began to delete large sections. Fang Ark cursed under his breath and began to change the ending of the story. You want to read sweet stories, right? Look. I'm going to choke you to death. A tragic ending was previously set. Change the ending. It's not that difficult. In his previous life, in order to make money, Fang Zhou would also write some sweet articles that even insulin could not suppress. It's just some candy, you'll choke me to death. This world style. Even youth literature with a happy ending is written in a fresh and subtle style. There are very few sweet stories about the world of Ark. That wasn't the case before. Now we have it. When it comes to showing off one's love in various ways, Fang Zhou knows a thing or two. The original ending was changed into a completely different style after some manipulation, which made people smile more than AK after watching it. It took some time to modify the ending. Wait until the revision is finished. It was already past 4 o'clock. Looking at the two articles on the desk, which added up to more than 40,000 words, Fang Zhou was in a daze. This was a speed he had never dared to imagine in his previous life. After the modification, I found the email address for submissions to the Youth Tribe magazine and sent 2 submissions there. Pen name, Honest Man. Finish all this. It's almost 5 o'clock. Fang Zhou plans to go out for a walk and have breakfast. Originally, he wanted to ask Hong Xiaolong to join him, but he didn't expect that this guy had already fallen asleep. Fang Zhou left the box and left the internet cafe alone. The sky was already turning pale. The street where New World Internet Cafe is located is an integrated entertainment street. There are also restaurants and bars next to several internet cafes. It was already early morning. There were almost no people on the road. However, many of the shops nearby still had their lights on. After all, there are internet cafes and bars here, which are the places where young people's dreams begin and end. There are also many restaurants nearby, and they are also business at night. The streets are quiet after the hustle and bustle. There is a lot of garbage piled up on the roadside. This is evidence of the presence of some food stalls and barbecue stalls. Seeing the lights on in a noodle shop across the road not far away, Fang Zhou decided to go in and see if he could have some noodle soup. But when crossing the road, Ark has sharp eyes. I saw something light up in the green belt on the side of the road. When he walked over, he realized it was actually a mobile phone. Fang Zhou picked it up curiously and found that it was the latest model of fruit, and the phone case was decorated with fancy things. Look at the appearance. It should be a girl's phone. Fang Zhou pressed it, the screen lit up, and a low battery prompt appeared. Good job. There were more than 30 missed calls. It was very strange that the phone didn't have a lock password set. After a short waiting page, it quickly jumped to the desktop. The desktop wallpaper is a picture of a girl who looks pretty. But it feels like the beauty filter is turned on full. Fang Zhou had no interest in prying into other people's privacy, and was hesitating about how to deal with the situation when he suddenly received a phone call with the name Dear on it. After hesitating for a moment, Fang Zhou still answered the phone. Damn it. You finally answered the phone. UTM. Wow, she starts off by speaking in 3-character classics, and with a lot of maternal connotations. The key is that she sounds like a young girl. Fang Zhou frowned. He never indulges those who recite the Tao Te Ching. Your boyfriend has uremia? His mouth stinks. It's a woman. It actually has the note, Dear, what a mistake. Soon. A magnetic female voice came. I'm sorry, my friend lost his phone and searched for it for a long time. He was so anxious that he thought someone had taken it and deliberately ignored the call. I don't know where my phone is right now. Can you give it back to us? We can offer financial rewards. Before the magnetic voice finished speaking, the voice from before rang out again. I'm telling you, don't even think about stealing the phone, and don't just rummage through the contents. If any news leaks out, you're dead. There was a sense of frustration and exasperation in his tone, as well as a hint of guilt and anxiety. However, that voice was quickly stopped by a magnetic voice. He continued. Gentlemen, mobile phones are personal belongings. Please, don't look through the contents of your phone. Fang Zhou was in a hurry to eat noodles and said unhappily. Okay. I just found the phone on the roadside. Come and get it yourselves. I'll put it on top of the trash can in front of the green fruit bar. There aren't many people here right now, so no one should take it away. After saying, Fang Ark hung up the phone. The other party's attitude was so bad that Fang Zhou was too lazy to pay attention to him. This kind of person. He speaks in a bossy manner. It's a bit like a young lady's illness, just like. Never mind. However, after hearing the little girl's various shouting, Fang Zhou became curious about the phone. Open the photo album on your phone without any psychological burden. Good job. No wonder you're so nervous. There are many shocking photos in the album. The girl with the most photos in the album is the same person as the wallpaper, so she should be the owner of the phone. You have so many cool photos hidden away, but you don't lock them. It seems. That woman is in the same league as Teacher Chen. But Teacher Chen prefers taking pictures of others, and she likes taking pictures of herself even more. You have a big heart. But I have to admit it. By comparing multiple photos, the owner is indeed very good looking and has a great figure. He wears a Pikachu cartoon t-shirt, and Pikachu's face is stretched into a flat bun. Except for selfies. There are many other photos. Many of them are gatherings of friends or parties. There are no ordinary people among them, only young masters and daughters of wealthy families. The owner of the car also drives a Maserati with a Suzhou and Beijing license plate. No wonder he is so arrogant. It seems that she does have this ability. Thinking of the girl's behavior just now, Fang Zhou chuckled, closed the photo album, and searched the internet for a picture of a pregnancy test stick with 2 bars. Save and share to your moments. Caption. You know what to do, don't ask me to come to you. Then he frantically operated the phone and finally succeeded in draining the battery and shutting it down. He carefully wiped off the fingerprints on the phone and threw it into the trash can nearby. Turned and walked towards the noodle shop opposite. Conceal your achievements and fame. I told you to show off. The noodle shop opposite has just opened. Fang Zhou ordered a bowl of vegetarian noodles with a poached egg and slurped the noodles with peace of mind. About 10 minutes later, a yellow Maserati roared over and stopped in front of the Tsinghua bar opposite with a squeak. 2 girls got out of the car, but their faces couldn't be seen clearly from a distance. But you can see someone wearing cool clothes. Short hair that reaches the ears. A mini suspender skirt with Martin boots. She also wore a pink bowler hat on her head. The other man had long hair and wore a dark 3/4 sleeve suit. After getting off the car, the 2 went straight to the trash can at the door, found the phone on it, and fiddled with it while looking around. Chapter 21 Aunt Fang Shueru. Inside the noodle shop. Ark could see what was happening across the street through their window. It can be seen that the girl in the suspender skirt must be the owner of the mobile phone, and the one with long hair should be the companion with the magnetic voice. The 2 searched around. I didn't see anyone who stood out, so I got on the bus while muttering something. They probably never expected that the person who had just talked to them on the phone was slurping noodles across the street. It is honest to return the lost property. Fang Zhou lowered his head and felt that the little red flower on his chest became brighter. Maseratinet. The long-haired woman was driving. Looking at her bestie who was fiddling with her phone next to her, she said, Okay, just get your phone back. It stands to reason. Your phone must have been left there when you left the bar just now. When you left just now, weren't you chatting with Zhongshan and the others there? This must have been the time when it happened. Your phone is out of battery. Zhao Xiaotong pressed the power button but the battery still showed low. Although I am worried about the content in the phone. But there's nothing I can do. Throwing the phone aside, he said irritably. I hope nothing happens. It's a pity that we didn't catch that guy just now. It's good that nothing happened. If any news really gets out, I will definitely find that guy and make him pay. She sounds quite young. I hope you don't end up on the path of crime. I'm worried. I have so many beautiful photos. If a handsome guy sees them, it's fine. But I think it might be a perverted man who does something unspeakable with my photos. It makes me sick just thinking about it. The long-haired girl yawned and said, "Okay. I was about to go back to sleep, but you dragged me here and made me crazy. I'll go back to sleep after I send you back. Don't call me again unless you have enough sleep. Wait until I'm done. The store has been very busy lately, and I don't want to delay my beauty sleep. Finish breakfast." Fang Zhou carried in the fried dough sticks sold on the roadside and staggered back to the internet cafe. When we arrived at the box, Hong Xiaolong just woke up. I took the fried dough sticks and soy milk and ate them coolly, tons. Lao Fang, you are good at staying up late. You can stay up all night without closing your eyes, and you don't go back to sleep when the sun rises. Fang Ark opened the document again and said, "There's something else." Regardless of Hong Xiaolong, he tapped his fingers on the table and whispered, "Boss, I am your fan and have even donated a few movie tickets to you. Anyway, you don't exist in this world, so I pay tribute to you and hope you can carry forward your transplantation." Thinking of this, Fang Zhou felt that his thoughts became clear. Get up and pick up the keyboard. Click, click. 3 words were typed in the middle of the document. Ghost blows out the light. After seeing the current online literature ecosystem, Fang Zhou decided to start moving towards online literature. Although I know the development direction of online literature in the previous life. Something too advanced. The world may not accept it. Taking into account the current reading preferences and stickiness of readers, ARC finally decided to choose suspense. Of course. If you have something ready-made and proven in the market, but still want to come up with it yourself, then you must be out of your mind. I decided to to pay tribute to suspense novels. I can't avoid those 2 books. In this era of online literature desert, no matter which of those 2 books you take out, it's a winner. But in the end, Fang Zhou still decided to pay tribute to Ghost Blows Out the Light. After all, this story is more complete and the intention is to promote Chinese culture. And there is another important reason to prepare for changes in film and television. The 2 books have different styles. Grave Robbers Chronicles has some fantasy elements and many surreal plots. It is difficult to adapt it into film and television, which increases the cost of filming. If there are other options, Ghost Blows Out the Light is naturally more suitable. No grand ideals. I just feel that this is a blue ocean and I simply want to go in and make money. Don't think about those messy things. Isn't it better to just think about making money? Superficial and happy. Those scenes are engraved in memory. Compared to the stories I wrote before, copying books is obviously more convenient, with both hands flying and the keyboard clacking. Volume 1, The Ancient City of Jingjue. However, you should pay attention to changing the original story background to suit this world. There are also geographical markers and place names. 8 o'clock in the morning. There are 30,000 more words in the document. Fang Zhou stopped writing after Hu Bei told the story of 100 skins of beautiful women. After revising the manuscript, I found no problem. Open a web page. After some searching, I opened a forum called Zhio. There were many well-known forums in the past life, but they do not exist in this world. The most popular forum now is this one called Zhio, which is equivalent to a large comprehensive community. Register an account and upload the 30,000-word manuscript to the literature section. Ghost Blows Out the Light has a total of 8 volumes and 2 million words. Even if Fang Zhou had enough time and typed until his keyboard was smoking, it would still take some time to copy down the entire book. I'm going to post 30,000 words here, leaving a little suspense. Post it online to see the effect. After finishing all this, Fang Zhou turned off the computer and left with Xiaolong, who could hardly open his eyes. In Xiaolong's condition, he himself didn't dare to drive. But his home is not far away. The car is lost. He strolled back by himself. Fang Zhou was also preparing to go back, but received a call. Seeing the note, "Aunt," Fang Zhou hesitated for a moment and answered the phone. "Aunt. Did you miss me? It's rare that you would take the initiative to call me." There was a pause on the other end of the phone, and then a clear voice came from the phone. Kid, learn to strike first. It's rare that you didn't take the initiative to call me yesterday. I thought something happened to you. Now seeing how shameless you are, I feel relieved. The arc is pitiful. I'm just afraid that my aunt will dislike me. I dislike you, but I haven't noticed that you call less often. How are your studies going recently? This is a bit hurtful. Fang Zhou said unhappily. Aunt, you'll easily lose friends if you chat like this. My dear aunt, if I can't get into college, how about you use your connections to let me work in the morgue in your hospital? I heard that the salary there is quite high, there is no academic requirement, and it is paid on a daily basis. Fang Ark hadn't finished yet. The other side said unhappily. Don't be so funny. I have to go to work today. I just arrived at the hospital and have to go to the ward for rounds. I don't have time to chat with you. When are you free? Come to aunt's place for dinner. Fang Zhou smiled and said. That's a must. As long as my aunt calls, there must be time. But aunt, let's go out to eat. If it doesn't work, I can treat you. We should be nicer to ourselves. Hang up the phone. Fang Zhou looked at his phone in a daze. A lot of things happened to me these 2 days, so I didn't have much time to pay attention to some things in my previous life. Fang Shueru is Fang Zhou's aunt and Fang Yuru's younger sister. He is only 12 years older than Fang Zhou and is 30 years old this year. Ark was born. Fang Shueru just graduated from elementary school. At that time, Fang Yuru was determined to achieve success in her career, and Lao Wang had little experience. Most of the time, it was Fang Zhou who was taken out to play by his aunt who was just in junior high school. The two have a good relationship. Mom is very busy, and Fang Zhou is very attached to his aunt. Fang Shueru left Nanwu to go to college. Fang Zhou, who was already in elementary school, cried several times and held onto his aunt's legs and refused to let go. 3 years ago, Fang Yuru ignored Fang Zhou, and Fang Shueru just got her master's degree in medicine and returned to Nanwu. Fang Zhou would look for Fang Shueru whenever he had time. Especially on weekends. He almost always pesters Fang Shueru. Every time Fang Shueru said that she disliked Fang Zhou because he was too clingy, but she never rejected him once. Chapter 22. Something big happened. It was already noon when we returned to the yard. Fang Zhou came in carrying a lot of things, big and small bags, all daily necessities and food. The bag was hanging on his shoulder and arm, and he held a shoe box in his hand. Put things down. Fang Zhou took out a rolled-up net from the things he brought back and came to the yard. He found 4 wooden sticks and inserted them at 4 points on the edge of the courtyard wall to form a rectangle. Then wrapped the net around the sticks to form a simple fence. Then, take the shoe box you just held. Placed in the fence and slowly tilted, a few little yellow dots rolled out of the shoe box. He made a few more kai-kai sounds and seemed a little confused. Soon, adapted to the environment. Then he began to stroll happily in the fence. Brother, what is this? Beside. Yaya opened her eyes wide and looked at the little ones in the fence, her face full of curiosity and eagerness to try, and asked Fang Zhou in a baby voice. In fact, she had already seen it upstairs when Fang Zhou came back just now. Although I met him yesterday, I had a good impression of this big brother. But she is introverted by nature. I still don't dare to contact people easily. Just watching Fang Zhou's movements curiously from above. Until a few furry little chicks were strolling in the fence, he could no longer bear to come down from it, and hurried to the side of the fence, staring at the chicks in the fence with his eyes wide open. Grandma Zhou also came down with them. When he saw that Fang Zhou actually bought a few chicks and raised them in the yard, he looked surprised and enlightened. As a traditional Nanwu little old lady. And live in the city. She hadn't seen such newly hatched chicks for a long time, let alone Yaya. Fang Zhou glanced at Yaya and said. This is a chick. Yaya, help me keep an eye on them and don't let them run out. I'll go get some food for the chickens. Looking at these furry little things, Yaya leaned on the edge of the fence, wishing she could go in too. After hearing what Fang Zhou said, she nodded repeatedly. So cute. After Fang Zhou returned to their house, he broke off a few lettuce leaves, chopped them up, and mixed them with millet. Simple feed complete. Serve it out and sprinkle it on a plate inside the fence with your hands. The chicks immediately gathered around. Yaya hesitated and came in front of Fang Zhou, grasping the corner of her clothes with her little hands, staring at the chicken feed in Fang Zhou's hand, her eyes eager to try. Grandma Zhou, who was standing nearby, saw this and moved her mouth, just about to speak. But Fang Zhou shook his head slightly. Hesitate for a moment. After the chicks finished eating from the plate, they gathered around Fang Zhou again. Yaya finally mustered up the courage to ask in a low voice. Big brother, can you let me try feeding the chickens? Fang Zhou pretended to realize something, handed the small bowl to Yaya and said. Of course. Then you can slowly sprinkle these on the plate, or sprinkle them on the ground. Well, you can add some water to the chicken later. Yaya nodded frantically. I feel like this is the happiest day, and I can't help but say. These chicks are so cute and beautiful. Fang Zhou nodded affirmatively. It will definitely be delicious if it's braised. The old man and the young turned and stared at Fang Zhou. The little girl Yaya was guarding beside the fence. Big brother, can we not eat these chicks? Look how cute they are, and they are so small. There are 10 of them in total, shining golden like little suns. Ark is just teasing little girls. Open to 10 suns, that would burn people out. There is a myth in our ancient times. It is said that in ancient times there were 10 suns in the sky and there was a severe drought. As a result, Hu Yi wanted to shoot down all the suns. Have you heard of Hu Yi? The little guy shook his head. But I was also attracted by the Ark story. 10 suns. This is amazing. Fang Zhou was bored and continued to fool the little girl. Hu Yi is a good archer, but his body is too fragile. His wife is called Chang Yi. You've heard of the story of Chang Yi flying to the moon, right? The one who lives in Guanghan Palace is also a Zhongdan sister. It is said that Hu Yi is a sharpshooter. Seeing that 10 suns have caused a severe drought and people are living in misery, I want to shoot down all 10 suns. The 3 of them were surrounding the chicken fence in the yard. Grandma Zhou was standing nearby. Fang Zhou slowly told the little girl some strange stories. After talking about Hu Yi shooting down the sun, we talked about the proud little rooster. After talking about the proud little rooster, we talked about the origin of the idiom hearing the cock crow and rising to dance. The little girl listened attentively, her expression following the story. On the one hand, I was feeding the chicks, adding water to them, and I was also responsible for persuading the chicks to stop fighting. I was very busy. This scene in the yard. It actually seems particularly harmonious. However, as it got closer to noon, the sun became stronger and stronger, and the little girl realized that there was no shade for the chicks. He looked up at Fang Zhou and said, Big brother. The chickens must be hot, why don't we find them a cool place? After a morning of chicken diplomacy, Fang Zhou has successfully entered Yaya's list of good people. Facing Fang Zhou, Yaya no longer has the previous restraint and alienation. Fang Ark nodded. Find a box and use it as a home for these chicks. Fang Zhou found a cardboard box and helped cut a hole for the chicks to enter and exit, and also made a window for ventilation. Fang Zhou went back to his room to sleep. Yaya, who was reluctant to leave, was also taken back upstairs by Grandma Zhou. While the Ark was soundly sleeping. Some people cannot live in peace. In a beautifully decorated apartment, a woman in a silk thigh-length suspender nightgown was awakened by the doorbell and knocks, and walked to the door yawning. After seeing through the peephole that it was a friend, he opened the door. Complained to. Sister Yao, you are in such good spirits. It's only 1 o'clock, and you're already up and running to me. But I haven't gotten enough sleep yet. You can do whatever you want. I need to go to sleep for a while. I'm so sleepy. These 2 people. They were the 2 people who lost their phones in the morning. Pei Qingyao held Zhao Xiaotong's hand and said speechlessly. Don't sleep. You know something happened, where's your phone? Zhao Xiaotong didn't take it seriously. He looked around the living room with sleepy eyes and found his cell phone that was charging on the coffee table. He unplugged it and slumped down on the sofa. Turn on the machine. While asking my best friend what was going on. Pei Qingyao shook her head, not knowing how to explain, and said depressedly. It's quiet when you turn off your phone. Those people couldn't contact you and finally came to me. I was woken up this morning. Just turn on the phone and see what's going on. Zhao Xiaotong looked confused. However, after the phone was turned on, a series of notification sounds kept coming from the phone, which lasted for 2 or 3 minutes. Zhao Xiaotong was dumbfounded. He didn't bother to ask Pei Qingyao and started checking his phone. 99 plus text messages. 99 plus WeChat messages. There are 99 plus similar new updates in the circle of friends. Zhao Xiaotong remembered that he hadn't posted anything special on his moments recently, so why were there so many comments? I quickly opened the circle of friends. Her signature on WeChat moments is also very interesting. There is always a group of invisible friends lying in your friend list like dead people, occasionally pretending to be dead, and changing their epitaphs from time to time. It fits her personality very well. However, at this time, Zhao Xiaotong had already seen hundreds of comments on his circle of friends, and his face turned green. Guess what happened immediately? Son of a bitch! It must be that idiot from last night. If I knew which grandson did this, I would crush him to death. Zhao Xiaotong was still cursing. The cell phone rang. When Zhao Xiaotong saw the call from Mom, his face changed. Chapter 23 Jumping from Building. Mom, it's not what you think. I don't have a partner right now, and I'm not hanging out with anyone, but my phone was taken by an idiot who secretly posted on WeChat moments and ran out of battery, shutting it down. I really didn't lie to you. Qingyao is still here with me. If you don't believe me, I'll let her tell you. What do you mean I let her lie to you? Okay, that's how it is. Believe it or not, there's no point in holding a grandson. If you want to hold a child, just give birth to one yourself. Seeing Zhao Xiaotong swearing, her mother was convinced that her daughter was really fine. I could only helplessly give a few words of advice and hang up the phone. After dealing with my mom. Before Zhao Xiaotong had time to catch his breath, his cell phone rang again. Zhao Xiaotong frowned and answered. Zhaoshen, you are mentally ill. You believe such things. Yes, I'm pregnant and my husband doesn't want me anymore. Do you want to take over? If you are willing, bring your household registration booklet tomorrow and we'll meet at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Are you really willing? I think you are just dreaming, get out. Hang up the phone again. In order to prevent his breasts from hurting due to anger, Zhao Xiaotong turned off the sound, threw his phone aside, and lay on his back on the sofa, causing the heels on his pajamas to fluctuate up and down. Thinking of my own tragic experience, I thought of the person who started it. Zhao Xiaotong jumped up from the backrest. Hate said. No. We must find that guy. Sister Yao, find someone to check which bastard took my phone. I'm going to kill him. Pei Qingyao was woken up due to lack of sleep and was having a headache. Rubbing his forehead, he said unhappily. That's all. The surveillance camera at the entrance of the bar is broken. If you want to check, you have to go through the police, and you need help. We are not familiar with Nanwu. However, since that person dared to use your phone to do this, maybe there are no photos saved. Although I feel that people who use mobile phones in the morning are quite unethical. However, Pei Qingyao also felt that it was better to have less trouble than more, so she decided to let her best friend go. You can't blame them all for this. It depends on the time. That person posted it on WeChat moments after answering your call. If you hadn't said such harsh words on the phone and threatened her, she wouldn't have done such a thing. Let's leave it at that. Zhao Xiaotong also knew. This matter would not be a trivial matter if it were really investigated. I can only lie on the sofa like a cricket pupa, like a big fleshy maggot my innocence. Nanwu No. 3 Middle School. As one of the top middle schools in Nanwu City, the school's style is still very good and the supporting facilities are very complete. Although there are no students on weekends, other functional departments are still operating normally. Security room. Li Bing, who is in his 50s, has just returned from a patrol. To Xiaozhong in front of the computer. The weather is getting hotter and hotter. It's only April, but my clothes are soaked after just one patrol. Let me take a look at the video records for this week. The college entrance examination is coming soon. It's a time of year when school gets more involved and people who don't have the prospect of going to university can get uneasy. Those who fight, cause trouble, and steal things from school. There is something Li Bing didn't say. In fact, at this time every year, there is another thing that happens quite frequently, that is, students jumping off buildings. Several occur every year in Nanwu City. Maybe it's because of study pressure. Maybe because of a broken heart. It could also be due to other things. After all, many accidents happen in this season. But this kind of thing is unlucky. Li Bing doesn't want to be a pessimist. Fuck. Xiao Zhang, who was leisurely watching a video, suddenly jumped up from his chair, threw himself in front of the computer, paused the video that was being played multiple times, and rewound it a little. Staring intently. Seeing this, Li Bing quickly walked to their computer. After the two of them confirmed the situation on the screen, they looked at each other in surprise, and Xiao Zhang couldn't help swallowing. In the video, a figure jumped directly from the 6th floor of the laboratory building. What's strange is, there are several big trees next to the experimental building that are as thick as a man's embrace. The person who jumped from the building fell into the tree canopy. I don't know if he was scratched by the branches and his falling speed was slowed down. He couldn't be seen clearly in the video because of the leaves. Finally fell under the tree. The man was wearing a school uniform and was undoubtedly a student. Li Bing looked serious. Call Principal Wu. This matter must be reported to the principal. Xiao Zhang, do not touch anything in the computer. Li Bing is an old security guard and has some experience in dealing with this kind of emergency. At the same time, stare at the screen in the video. In the picture, the man was a little confused after falling down. But it seemed that nothing was serious. He sat up immediately after falling to the ground, but he sat on the ground for several minutes without moving. Until two teachers passed by the laboratory building. The person who jumped from the building was seen sitting on the ground. His school uniform was torn. Go forward and check the situation. It is not known what the three people said to each other. The two teachers took the person who jumped from the building away, and the three people did not appear in the subsequent scenes. Xiao Zhang also recovered from his shock. He looked at the time and said, "It happened the day before yesterday, a little before class on Friday afternoon. I remember that there seemed to be news that Fang Zhou from Senior 3-2 fell down from a tree and was criticized by the teacher. Could this be it? He's the son of Yinsi Group, right? How could he do such a thing? And no news has come out at all. There is something mysterious about this matter." Lao Li and Xiao Zhu watched the video twice. From this angle, you can't see how Fang Zhou got to the roof, but you can clearly see that Fang Zhou lingered on the roof for a short while, then climbed over the railing and jumped down. It's definitely not a fall. After figuring out the general situation, Li Bing picked up the phone and dialed. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Fang Zhou came out of the bedroom feeling refreshed. After a nap at noon, he had fully recovered his energy. When I arrived at the yard, I found that Yeye was still there, wearing a goose-yellow sun hat on her head. See the arc come out. Grandma Zhu smiled and said, "Yeye is so fond of these chicks that she can't even sleep well during her nap." He woke up after taking a nap and said he wanted to come and see the chicks. Looks like a complaint. But he was smiling while speaking. In the past 2 years of taking care of Yeye, I rarely saw the little girl so happy. Moreover, the little girl was a bit of a germaphobe before, and would feel uncomfortable if her hands were a little dirty. But just now, when she was playing with the chicken, she didn't care even if there was poop on her hand. If I hadn't dragged her to wash her hands. I guess this little girl is still reluctant to leave the fence. See the arc rise. Yeye waved happily. "Big brother, you're up. Big brother, something bad has happened. The chicken's home is not safe. Just now there was a gust of wind and the house collapsed. Some chickens inside also tumbled over. How pitiful." The little girl looked at Fang Zhou with blinking eyes. Chapter 24 School Response. In the yard. There were some wooden planks and boards next to the fence. Just now, little classmate Yeye said that the chicken's home was not good, so Grandma Zhu helped to find some materials and tools, and Fang Zhou decided to make a chicken coop. That's the good thing about the yard. If you need anything strange, you can find it. In the future, it will be no problem to get a barbecue grill and eat skewers in the yard. When she heard that she was going to build a house for the chickens, the little girl became very excited and ran around to help. Grandma Zhu said, fearing bumps into things. Arc waved. "Fine. Just hand over tools and materials." After hearing what Fang Zhou said, and seeing the little guy was so enthusiastic, Grandma Zhu stopped trying to stop him, but just watched carefully from the side. Just make a chicken coop, no drawings needed. In his previous life, Fang Zhou could do all kinds of work and had good hands-on skills. Now he was working with Yeye. You need a longer stick. The one next to your feet will do. Okay, this one, what else do you want? Hammer and nails. Student Yeye, please bring the largest piece of wood over here. Soldier Yeye, please be safe. No problem, sir, I'll deliver the supplies right away. Good job. The little girl helped happily and had a strong sense of participation. Grandma Zhu couldn't help but smile. Final. Although the chicken coop they made looked like it had been chewed by a dog and was not very beautiful, it was the result of their joint efforts and they were both very satisfied with it. Yeye even ran upstairs to get down her own paint, colored the chicken coop, and drew her favorite Peppa Pig on it. Like a pink hair dryer. When Fang Zhou and Yeye were looking at the fruits of their labor with satisfaction. The atmosphere in the principal's office of number 3 middle school was solemn. In the office, Li Bing and Xiao Zhang were both there. Principal Yang, who was in his 50s with grey hair and an outstanding temperament, had arrived. The Dean of Studies had also arrived, as well as Sun Jielin. Originally, Sun Jielin stayed at home with her children on weekends. The principal called and asked her to go to school immediately. The tone is serious. Wait till she arrives. The others were already in the principal's office. Principal Yang didn't say hello. When he saw Sun Jielin, he waved and said, "Teacher Sun, come and take a look. Is this person Fang Ark from your class?" Sun Jielin went over curiously, and when she saw the screen on the computer, her mind went blank. After a long while, he came back to his senses and said, "It's the Ark. He was taken to the office on Friday. A teacher said that he was seen climbing a tree and falling down, with his clothes torn, so he asked me to discipline him strictly. I was the one who called Fang Zhu's father to take him back. I didn't expect that he wasn't a tree climber at all." For a while, Sun Jielin had mixed feelings. Although Fang Zhou is a kid who doesn't like studying. But he was well behaved in school and didn't act up and disturb other people. He was much better than other people whose families came from wealthy families. Besides, he was handsome, so Sun Jielin had a good impression of him. I never thought of it. How could Fang Ark, who looks quite cheerful, do such a thing? After confirming his identity, Principal Yang breathed a sigh of relief. Asked. That. Has anything major happened to Fang Zhu's family recently? Or has he had any conflicts with others at school that would cause him to behave like this? Stimulate. If there is anything. Sun Jielin hesitated for a moment and said. A few days ago, Fang Zhou had a small conflict with his classmates. When I was in the office, Fang Zhou told me that his parents were divorced. I confirmed with his father that this was indeed the case. I wonder if it has anything to do with this incident. Although this is someone else's privacy. However, now that such a big thing has happened, Sun Jielin definitely cannot hide it. The Dean of Studies next to him was also startled when he saw the surveillance video, but he has slowly come to his senses. Glancing at the people in the room, he looked up at Principal Yang and whispered. Headmaster. Nothing serious happened anyway. And Fang Zhou himself didn't extend it to anyone, probably because he didn't want others to know. Or, we pretend we don't know. The line was under maintenance a few days ago. Maybe the camera over there is broken. Principal Yang glanced at the Dean of Academic Affairs, knew what he meant, frowned, thought for a moment, then shook his head to reject it. Just because nothing happened this time doesn't mean nothing will happen in the future. This matter needs to be resolved. It's not a cover-up. Don't deal with it. Who knows if there will be a next time? Teacher Sunday. Ark is in your class, you know him better. I asked you to be the head teacher of class 2 because I valued your ability to handle relationships with your classmates. You need to do some ideological work on Fang Zhu's side. Tell him not to take anything to heart and to communicate well. But be careful about the method and approach. We must not allow students to develop a rebellious mentality, and we must not allow them to be stimulated in any way. We must appease them, appease them. I'll communicate with Mr. Fang. Let's communicate first. If it really doesn't work, let him rest at home for a while. Sun Jielin's heart skipped a beat. I know there is nothing the principal can do about it. There are so many students in the school, and it is impossible to provide psychological counseling for all of them. If there are students who really get stuck in a dead end, they will usually be taken home by their families. Don't do it directly. It's just that the Fang family's situation is special. After leaving the principal's office, Sun Jielin was still confused. Why did Ark take such action? Sun Jielin, who also has a child, was heartbroken when she saw the video of Fang Zhou jumping from the 6th floor without hesitation. She could imagine how desperate he was at that time. It's probably not just the parents' divorce, there may be other hidden secrets. On Monday, Fang Zhou got up when it was just dawn. When we got to the yard, we found that the chicks had come out of the coop and were strolling in the fence, chirping energetically. It was obvious that they had adapted to their new life. Ark made chicken feed. Grandma Zhou came out. Fang Zhou asked Grandma Zhou to help look after the child during the day. Grandma Zhou agreed with a smile and was full of gratitude to Fang Zhou. She naturally understood why Fang Zhou suddenly bought a few chicks to raise. I was surprised at the boy's sharpness, he actually noticed Yeye's abnormality. And we also thought of ways to alleviate the problem. That's thoughtful. I trotted to school and had breakfast on the way. After arriving at the classroom, I took out the books I brought from Tang Tang's house, opened the first-year Chinese textbook and started reading. Since I made a bet with Fang Qinglin, Fang Zhou naturally had to be more serious. Fang Zhou is naturally not afraid of subjective scores such as the application of Chinese knowledge points, composition, and sentence imitation. But as for the contents of the books, the ones Fang Zhou had memoized before were all excellent masterpieces. And in the textbook, most of them are articles that I don't remember much. When you say it out loud, you will suddenly realize, oh, yes, I have learned this text before. It is in my high school textbook. But if you were asked to recall it yourself, you would never be able to remember it even if you were beaten to death. Ark to do. It is to fill in the content outside of these memories. If he were to take the Chinese language test now, Fang Zhou was confident that he could get 120, but Fang Qinglin was also above that level. 3 years of courses, 6 books, and the second mock exam starts on Friday. Fortunately, Fang Ark's memory has been improved by the time travel, and it has become a little abnormal. He has a photographic memory and can almost memorize a text after reading it once. Otherwise it's hard to say. Now it's time to grind the tofu. Only. I saw Fang Zhou reading in the classroom early in the morning. This actually scared the other people in the classroom. This Fang Zhou has been acting a little abnormal recently. How come he is studying so seriously? Does he want to make a comeback in these 2 months? My classmates didn't believe that I could turn things around in 2 months. It's true. People who are good at studying can't stand it the most. Have they suffered for 3 years in vain? While Fang Zhou was studying silently and seriously, Tang Tang walked into the classroom carrying her small bag. Chapter 25 Manuscript. Today Tang Tang was wearing a dress with large blue, white and yellow floral patterns, which reached her calf and was close to her ankles. A pair of black short boots, with a small section of pale calf exposed in the middle. Their hair is casually scattered. Still carrying her little pink bag. When she came in, people in the classroom couldn't help but take a few more glances at her. They felt that Tang Tang seemed no different from usual, but she also seemed a little different. In fact, Fang Zhou can understand these people's psychology. Mainly a change in temperament. Tang Tang's taste in clothes has always been good. It's just that because he's worried about being laughed at, he walks with his back hunched and his aura is less impressive. Although I don't know why. Tang Tang is less reserved today, giving people a naturally different feeling. He sat down without looking away. Suddenly deflated. She was burying her head in her textbook and breathing heavily. She was really scared just now. It was just because Fang Zhou had dinner at her house yesterday and reminded her to be confident at school. When she came in just now, she was arrogant, literally. Arrived at the seat. The first thing Tang Tang did was to take out wet wipes and start wiping the table, but of course she didn't forget Fang Zhou's side. While busy, I shared my happiness with Fang Zhou. Arc. I lost 3.6 kgs in the past 2 days. For breakfast today, I had 2 crystal dumplings. Fang Zhou curled his lips. Girl. It's quite accurate at times. It's accurate to the decimal point, so it's just a matter of drinking less water and peeing less. But you can't hit it. It seems to be working well. How much do you usually eat for breakfast? 2 baskets of steamed buns, a box of milk, an egg, a piece of cake. The look in Fang Zhou's eyes slowly changed, and Tang Tang's face turned a little red. Fang Zhou waved his hand and said, "Then you don't have to lose so much weight. When it comes to dieting, you have to do it step by step. You're not eating, so how can you study well? Your first priority now is to study. You can't let your body get ruined." Fang Zhou's words sounded very old-fashioned. However, after hearing this, Tang Tang couldn't help but smile slightly. "Thanks." Her face was slightly flushed. Fang Zhou was stunned for a moment and guessed that this girl must have had some wrong idea, but it was difficult to explain. After wiping the table, it was almost time for morning reading class. Fang Zhou continued reading. Beside, Tang Tang unzipped her small bag and said to Fang Zhou, "Fang Zhou, Mom stuffed so much candy into my mouth again, you can take it, I can't eat candy now." Speaking of, looking at the Ark with anticipation. Ark is speechless. "Are you interested in my 7-digit penguin account? Tang Tang? You're trying to eat me to the point of giving me diabetes so I can die suddenly, and then you want to inherit my penguin account." "Okay, I'm kidding." Seeing Tang Tang looking anxious to explain, Fang Zhou picked out a piece from Tang Tang's bag and stuffed it into Tang Tang's hand. It was fleshy. Tang Tang peeled off the candy wrapper and put it in his mouth. Looking at a familiar book. "Are you going to study Chinese?" No wonder Tang Tang felt strange. Fang Zhou's grades were indeed poor, with only around 400 points. But the Chinese language is relatively good. Tilde. Most of the time I can pass. So I was a little surprised that Fang Zhou planned to major in Chinese. After all, no matter how bad your Chinese is, as long as you write carefully, your score won't be too low, unlike other subjects. Besides, Fang Zhou's Chinese score is not too bad. Even if I need to make up for it, it shouldn't be Chinese. Fang Zhou curled his lips and said, "I made a bet with Fang Qinglin that I have to surpass her in one of the 2 mock tests this time. After much thought, Chinese is the most likely choice. What's more, I'm going to work hard in secret. I'll get a high score in the exam and scare the hell out of those guys in the class." Everyone looked like they had seen a ghost this morning. Ark was a little unhappy. Although Fang Zhou's words were not serious, Tang Tang felt that Fang Zhou was very humorous. And she didn't doubt Fang Zhou at all. How could you, a poor student, have the confidence to make a bet with Fang Qinglin, who has always been the top student in the grade? That. You don't come home for dinner either. How about you come to my house for lunch from now on? I always cook at noon anyway. Tang Tang's face flushed red, and she didn't dare to look up at Fang Zhou, but her thoughts were written all over her face. Fang Zhou raised his eyebrows and looked at the person next to him. "Don't try to tempt me. I have to study hard during this period before the college entrance examination. I have to spend my lunch time studying. I can't waste it on these things." Tang Tang was shocked. "Could these words come from your mouth, Fang Ark?" He said, with some disappointment. Jiangnan Literature Publishing House is a commercial publishing house located in Suzhou, the capital of Jiangnan Province. It was formerly a state-owned publishing house and was privatized after restructuring. The magazine company moved towards commercialization. It has its own publishing house and has established more than a dozen publications of its own, which are quite profitable, and has gradually formed its own ecological style. Ding Ziqing is an editor who just joined the company at the beginning of the year. It was a public office before. He just didn't like the 9-to-5 life, so despite his family's dissuasion, he quit his original job and became an editor at Jiangnan Magazine. Responsible for reviewing manuscripts for Youth Tribe magazine. Monday is full of energy. After arriving at the company in the morning, she makes herself a cup of coffee and sits at her desk. This is her favorite feeling. I cleaned up the desk, arranged the green plants on it, and started the day's work. Reviewing is somewhat boring. But it made Ding Ziqing happy. When I opened my mailbox, there were 200 or 300 emails of submissions. Some people submitted more than one, so the number of manuscripts had to be doubled. But this is because of the backlog over the weekend, and normally there aren't that many. Ding Ziqing began to read the manuscript. This needle in a haystack review process is also very fast. By just scanning the beginning, most manuscripts can be classified as failed. The beginning is long-winded and has no focus, so I won't pass it. Elementary school students' composition failed. The style doesn't match, so it won't pass. It usually takes only a dozen seconds to review a submission. In fact, most of the articles in the magazine are commissioned, and only a small number of articles are picked up in this way. Open a submission again. The document is so big, 20,000 words. Ding Ziqing couldn't help but frown, feeling pessimistic. The beginning is presented in the form of dialogue. It's quite novel. Ding Ziqing couldn't help but mutter. Moreover, the dialogues are straightforward and interesting, directly showing the personality traits of the two people, and establishing their characters in just a few sentences, which requires very strong writing skills. Ding Ziqing immediately became interested and continued reading. Time passes by unknowingly. Finally finished watching it. Ding Ziqing's eyes were red. It seems that he hasn't come out of the story just now. Reaching out to pick up the coffee and taking a sip, she found that the coffee had already gotten a little cold. Only then did Ding Ziqing realize that almost half an hour had passed. What a wonderful story, such sophisticated writing, I wonder who the author is. An honest man. I've never heard of that name. Could this be some boss's new vest? Ding Ziqing was a little surprised. It was a pen name she had never heard of. Could she really be a newcomer? Chapter 26 Manuscript Review. Ziqing, why are your eyes red? Opposite him was the review editor of Wuxia magazine, who had a good relationship with Ding Ziqing. I was also reviewing manuscripts after coming up in the morning. When I was stretching my neck to take a break, I saw Ding Ziqing opposite me with red eyes, asking me curiously. Ding Ziqing sniffed and said, I received a manuscript and read some of it. The other side was surprised. It seems like I got a good article that even moved you, but you are too sentimental. A joke. The other party then started reviewing the manuscript. Ding Ziqing opened another submission from that person. I muttered to myself. I didn't expect this article to be so well written. Whether it is truly amazing or just a flash in the pan depends on the quality of this other manuscript. After reading the beginning, Ding Ziqing discovered that this was also a campus youth story and thought it would have a similar ending. After all, this type of story is popular nowadays. But as time goes by, Ding Ziqing's mouth corners couldn't help but rise as the plot progressed. My heart, which had just been torn apart, was healed by this article. That's so sweet. After reading it, Ding Ziqing took a big gulp of water. I felt as refreshing as if I had eaten a popsicle in the middle of summer, from my skull to the base of my tail, and at the same time, I was filled with infinite curiosity. Same subject matter, same writing style, but completely different emotions. A general author or writer. They all have their own style and imprint. But the person who submitted the two articles switched styles very smoothly. There was no obscurity or unnaturalness at all. The plots were unexpected yet reasonable. Baby. Regardless of whether it is an old author's pseudonym. Since this pen name has never been encountered before, Ding Ziqing can try to win him over. At the door of the editor's office, a short-haired woman in her 50s walked in. See Ding Ziqing in a daze. He walked over and said, Xiao Ding. Old Yu has reviewed it and there are no problems with the article, so the layout is set. You are familiar with the work here. Do your best. This is He Qin, Ding Ziqing's leader and the editor-in-chief of the magazine. Seeing He Qin, Ding Ziqing quickly stood up. Mr. He. I just received 2 submissions today. I feel they are both very good. I suggest you add them to this issue of the magazine. The writing is very sophisticated and the plot is fascinating. Would you like to take a look? Editor-in-chief He looked at Ding Ziqing in surprise. Although Ding Ziqing has only been here for a short time, she knows some basic information. When everything was about to be finalized, if she suddenly proposed to change the manuscript, she must have sufficient reasons, otherwise others would not agree. The editor-in-chief also understands Ding Ziqing's personality. The fact that she brings this up now shows that she is very confident in the newly received manuscript. Sit down in Ding Ziqing's seat. An honest man. I've definitely never heard of this vest before. But even if an old author changes his pseudonym, he usually won't submit to youth literature. The beginning is good, the writing is also very good, and the flow is smooth. Wu tilde tilde tilde. The plot is well designed, unexpected but reasonable. Editor-in-chief he read the manuscripts recommended by the people below more carefully, and it took him more than 10 minutes to finish reading the 2 manuscripts. After reading it, there was a look of surprise in his eyes. I don't think it's a masterpiece. But as a youth book, the quality of both manuscripts is excellent. The writing is sophisticated and logical, the plot is constantly twisted, and the language is humorous. There is naturally no profound truth in youth reading materials. But editor-in-chief he is certain that these 2 articles will be the kind that will be memorable when published in the magazine. Such articles will boost magazine sales. But 20,000 words per article. Editor-in-chief he feels a bit of toothache. Youth Tribe is a 32-page printed version, with about 800 words per page. A manuscript of 20,000 words would take up about 25 pages, which would undoubtedly require screening out a lot of manuscripts and making major changes to the layout. But how can we not accept such manuscripts? At the desk, editor-in-chief he pondered for a while and said, "Has this person submitted manuscripts to us before?" Ding Ziqing affirmed. "At least I haven't received any submissions before." "Editor-in-chief, please take a look at this manuscript." The editor-in-chief waved his hand. "Receive. I'll talk to Lao Yu about adjusting the layout. We'll just publish 1 article this time. Contact the author and try to build a good relationship with him. Authors of this caliber are hard to come by, so it would be best if you could get him to write for you. How do you determine the fee?" This made the editor hesitate. After taking a look at the document open on the computer desktop, the editor-in-chief made the decision. The maximum is 200 per 1,000 words. Also, when you contact him, ask him if he can reduce the word count next time you submit your article. We can also increase the price a bit. Nanwu No. 3 Middle School. When Sun Jielin walked into the classroom, she looked at Fang Zhou behind her with a complicated look. She was shocked by what happened yesterday. But at this time, this kid acted like nothing happened. Sun Jielin has been a teacher for more than 10 years, facing these teenagers every day. She cannot imagine that they can remain so calm after something like that happens at this age. Could it be that he has lost his memory and doesn't remember that incident at all? But think about it, it's unlikely. I remember everything else. Only such an important thing was forgotten? It seems that I still need to find a chance to talk to him. Fang Zhou did notice that Sun Jielin looked at him several times during class, but he didn't think much about it. I thought it was because of the fight with Zhang Xiao that made Sun Jielin stare at me. You can only lower your head and reduce your presence. Buzz buzz buzz. The phone vibrated in my pocket. He took it out when the teacher wasn't paying attention and found that it was an unfamiliar number, and from out of town, so Fang Zhou hung up. After a while, the phone vibrated again. Arc peak. It turned out to be a text message. It was the number that had called just now. Fang Zhou didn't open the call and put the phone away. After class, Fang Zhou was about to call back, and Sun Jielin went to call him. "Fang Zhou, come out for a moment. There's something strange about the arc." Moreover, when they got outside, Sun Jielin was very friendly and did not say anything. Instead, he showed concern for Fang Zhou's daily life, telling Fang Zhou not to feel any pressure and to come to him directly if he had any problems. It made Fang Zhou feel confused. Old Sun left. Fang Zhou couldn't help but think. Could it be? "Teacher Sun, are you trying to save the country in a roundabout way? Are you planning to build a good relationship with me first, and then look for Lao Wang after you have taken care of the rear?" This was the only reason Fang Zhou could think of. "I can't tell. Teacher Sun is actually an expert in military strategy." Shaked his head. Fang Zhou took out his cell phone. I called the number back and heard a young female voice. "Hello, I'm the editor of Youth Tribe. You can just call me Xiao Ding. Do you remember that you submitted 2 manuscripts to us yesterday?" "Xiao Ding?" Fang Zhou's mouth twitched. Chapter 27 What does Tang Tang's pride mean? No wonder Ding Ziqing introduced herself like this. Although it is youth literature, the contributors are not necessarily young people. She herself is only 24 years old. The other party has sophisticated writing skills and the editor-in-chief attaches great importance to him. Ding Ziqing must lower her attitude. Fang Zhou suppressed his laughter. "Oh, it's Xiao Ding. Yes, I sent you 2 manuscripts yesterday. Sorry, I was in class just now. Attend class. Could it be a teacher? That's right. No wonder his writing style is so sophisticated and he can write such youth articles with such verve, and he is so clear about students' affairs and emotions. It must be because he has a lot of contact with young people. Ding Ziqing said quickly. Excuse me, are you a teacher? No, I'm a senior in high school. Ding Ziqing. Ark had no intention of teasing the editor. Tell the other person your identity directly. Only. The other party was stunned for a long time before coming back to his senses. Cough, cough, cough. To hide her embarrassment, Ding Ziqing quickly changed the subject and explained the purpose of the call. We have read the manuscript, and the editor-in-chief has also read it, and there is absolutely no problem. But it's a long article. So only one article will be published in one issue. Our Youth Tribe is a bi-monthly magazine. This issue will be published this week. I will send you a few sample copies after it is printed. Now she doesn't mention you anymore. Fang Zhou said calmly. I don't know how the fee is determined. Gar tilde tilde tilde. Ding Ziqing rarely encounters such directness. After all, as an educated person, I always feel a little awkward when it comes to such matters. Especially for first-time contributors. Feeling of withdrawing money. It seemed to have tarnished his dream. This thought flashed through Ding Ziqing's mind. Considering that the other party is a senior high school student, there won't be so many twists and turns. Moreover, if he can write so well in his senior year, at this age, he is definitely a high-yield potential stock, so I must build a good relationship with him. Ding Ziqing said sincerely. You? My name is Fang Zhou, just call me by my name. Hey, Mr. Fang Zhou, I won't beat around the bush. The upper limit our editor-in-chief has given you is 200 per thousand words. This is considered high compared to other publications of the same level and authors of the same level. Fang Zhou agreed without any comment. To be honest, he was very satisfied with the price. Although there are rumors that some commercial magazines pay authors up to 1,000 yuan per thousand words. But this is just a rumor after all. Even if it's true, it's only a very small number of people. And they are some very famous people. As a newcomer, I naturally won't get that kind of remuneration. The other end of the phone. Ding Ziqing's voice came again. Mr. Fang Zhou, there is something I want to discuss with you. Our editor-in-chief is asking you to contribute to our Youth Tribe magazine, and we hope you can become a regular contributor. This was not unexpected by Fang Zhou. But he had other ideas. These short stories are just for earning some pocket money, and the money comes quickly. If you want to really make money, you still have to rely on long articles, but I haven't made a final statement. I'm a senior now. Submitting articles is also to earn some pocket money. You know that the college entrance examination is coming up soon. I have other manuscripts to write, so I don't have much time to spend on this. The other side is obviously a little anxious. Mr. Ark. We are also very sincere. No time. I just think the payment is too low. After all, he said he had other manuscripts to write instead of studying. It seems that he is a student with serious academic imbalance. Ding Ziqing said. Our editor-in-chief has discussed this before. You can simplify the manuscript. As long as the quality of the manuscript is guaranteed, we can increase the unit price. We can negotiate the specific amount. Fang Zhou naturally did not hold out much hope for such a big promise. Then we'll talk about it later. Hang up the phone. I saw Tang Tang standing calmly by the railing not far away, pretending to look at the scenery. Seeing Fang Zhou end the call, I couldn't help but be curious. Ark. Is your article going to be published? For a middle school student, it is a magical thing to have someone around who can write and turn what he writes into lead type and put it in a book. Fang Ark nodded. That's a must. The editor of the magazine just called and said that the manuscript has been approved. Tang Tang clasped her hands together. That's amazing. There are little stars in my eyes. There's something about this girl that's contagious. This expression makes Fang Zhou feel like he's actually quite powerful. I'll treat you when the royalties come in. Dinner? That means we can be together with Ark again. Tang Tang turned her face slightly to hide the blush on her face and deliberately changed the subject. How much can you get for the manuscript this time? She was quite curious. Once again, I feel that Ark is powerful. We are all classmates. Others can only ask their parents for money, but Fang Zhou can already make money on his own. And the money earned is from royalties. Somehow, although they are both ways of making money, Tang Tang feels that the money earned from writing is more superior than the money earned from business. Fang Zhou thought about it and said, "This time, the two manuscripts are 40,000 words long, and at 200 yuan per thousand words, I can earn a total of 8,000 yuan. Enough for you? Come on, I almost forgot about the main thing. Business?" Watching Fang Zhou heading straight to the toilet at the end of the corridor, Tang Tang blushed and felt grateful for the news she had just heard. Although Tang Tang has never been short of money, she doesn't feel bad about a dress costing tens of thousands of dollars. But it doesn't mean he is out of touch with the world. In the class, there are also students with average conditions. Tang Tang listened to people chatting and learned that many people only earned 3,000 to 4,000 yuan a month. She knows it too. If it weren't for the home conditions. She was born in an ordinary family, went to middle school, took the college entrance examination, and found a job after graduation, earning only a few thousand yuan a month. Looking at Fang Zhou's back, Tang Tang felt that her heart was falling more and more. He's getting better and better, but I'm still that fat girl with poor academic performance. The gap is getting bigger and bigger. What should I do? No. I must work hard. When Tang Tang was about to do the self-study test, two girls quietly came to her side. "Tang Tang, I just saw you chatting with Fang Zhou again. Did you guys talk about it?" "It's Xiao Jing and Zhao Zhenzhen." A hint of unnaturalness flashed across Xiao Jing's face, while the chubby-faced Zhao Zhenzhen's face was full of gossip. The college entrance examination is coming soon. There are many more hardworking people on campus. There are also many couples who have confessed their love and are together, and singles who have failed in their confession. If they don't confess their love, they will have no chance anymore. Of course, there are also many self-satisfied lickers. Tang Tang felt shy. At the same time, seeing how much the two people cared about Fang Zhou, there was a hint of vigilance in his eyes, like a little kitten whose fur ball was stolen. With his face raised 18.5 degrees, he said, "We are friends." Fang Zhou's submission was accepted. His article will be published, and he will receive 8,000 yuan in royalties. Although she knew it had nothing to do with her, Tang Tang couldn't help feeling a little proud when she said this. "And I was the first one to see the article written by Fang Zhou. What a pity, I didn't see the other articles before. I'll ask him to come and have a look later." Zhao Zhenzhen was surprised. 8,000? Is that true? Xiao Jing also looked incredulous, doubting whether the article would really be published and whether she would really get 8,000 yuan in royalties. Yes. This two-person family. This is their ordinary person family that Tang Tang just used for comparison. I heard that Fang Zhou can get so much royalties. Naturally, I am skeptical. Tang Tang rarely interacted with his classmates, and he was a little excited at this moment, as if he was showing off. Fang Zhou also said that I have to surpass Fang Qinglin in one of the subjects in the second mock exam. It's confirmed. It turns out it was all bragging.